Chapter 919. None of the tens of thousands of disciples noticed the blood. Only Su Fong did. He had seen a lot of Big Goblin and had interacted with the Big Goblin countless times. Everyone thought that the Big Goblin was cruel by nature and was the natural enemy of humans. But looking at it now, in the eyes of the Big Goblin, humans were the natural enemy of the Big Goblin. This kind of pessimistic and compassionate thought only briefly passed through Su Fong's mind. Looking at it from another angle, which was also how most immortals saw it, the scene in front of them was just the law of the jungle. Just like the law of nature, survival of the fittest. This was the law of heaven and earth. Those at the bottom of the food chain should be trampled. Cultivators without strength should be trampled under the feet of the strong. They should be beheaded by the strong. It was the same as being trapped in this kind of enchantment. Like the three big goblins, they should be toyed with by fate. Everyone kills demons, but I want to raise demons. Everyone rejects them, but I want to make good use of them. Su Fong stood quietly beside Baby Snoring, not saying a word. Baby Snoring and the other disciples with strong backgrounds were arguing. They were either laughing at each other or shouting for the big goblin to kill each other. The three big goblins had no choice but to kill each other. The big goblin that lost would also die at the hands of the immortals who bet on spreading their wealth. Roar! Suddenly, a tragic and helpless scream was heard, almost tearing the giant mountain apart. It turned out, was it that cunning Huang? Chu, do you think I'll be able to find you? Chu Huang? As for the lion monster, it was on the verge of death. Half of the scaly big goblin's head was destroyed by Huang. Chu, Huan, Chuli, Xin Wei is short of money, so it's hard to buy Chuli, Weiwen, Theta Chu, Chuli, Chuli, damn it, Huang, Chuli, Chu, Laiwan, Dizzy, Changyu, Chuli, barium, Chuli, iridium Chu, porcelain side aluminum hull, slightly, you. I also placed 10 low-grade Dao artifacts on the lion monster's body. He's been through the scaled big goblin, but he can't compare to Huang. Huh. Xiao Mu, Kuwei Chong, stab, pop, what? Most of the surrounding disciples shook their heads. Haha, thank you for your kind intentions. However, there was one person who was laughing very proudly. Who is it? Brother Bao, of course. Baby Snoring and his group of followers were grinning from ear to ear in front of young Master Tianyun, young Master Crouching Immortal, and many other disciples as the immortals announced the results. Once again, he was in the limelight. Su Fong, on the other hand, silently took out the immortal talisman and exchanged it with those immortals. In an instant, he won 10 times the amount, 10 million immortal stones. Although they were only low-grade immortal stones, 10 million was already an astronomical figure to ordinary disciples. That brat, you have such good taste. You must be young Master Bao's follower. Following Bao young Master Bao will lead a good life. Many immortals who saw this scene were drooling. After finding an excuse, Su Fong left first. Baby Snoring did not ask him to stay either. He was showing off how amazing he was in front of countless disciples. As expected, it's still here. Su Fong quickly walked over to the other side. In the bustling crowd, he saw the familiar Ling Tai, as well as the beautiful Wang Yuzhen. I remember you. What's wrong? Wang Yuzhen saw Su Fong suddenly appear in front of her and raised her eyebrows. She was very shocked. Your pill cauldron is still far away. I've asked people to ask around in many chambers of commerce. Our Dao temple is located in outer space. It's not easy to go to the surrounding great worlds. I'm not asking about that. Why did he feel like he had become a god of plague? Could it be that you regret it and want the venomous wasp essence back? Wang Yuzhen's expression froze. No. Although I'm an ordinary disciple, I know the rules. A deposit is a deposit. As long as senior sister makes a trip for me, I'll forget about the deposit even if it doesn't succeed. Su Fong bowed and said, I'm here to buy some ores and materials to improve the quality of my artifacts. Other good materials are fine too. Oh, then wait a moment. There are many things to do today. Wang Yuzhen did not continue to argue with Su Fong. She began to collect the immortal stones and immortal pills. He could not tell. This young lady was also rich. Senior sister, Do you have any artifacts for refining artifacts? I want to continuously improve the quality of my artifacts. I can't afford to keep buying materials. Why don't I just buy an artifact for refining artifacts? You're thinking about refining artifacts again. Wang Yuzhen almost lost control of the immortal stones she was controlling. She glared at him coldly and was very angry. You're a virtual immortal. Why don't you cultivate the cultivation techniques of our sect properly and build a good foundation? Why are you always biting off more than you can chew? This is called preparing for a rainy day. He rubbed his nose in a daze. Preparing for a rainy day? With your little cultivation, you should know that refining artifacts and pill cauldrons are peerless treasures. Any one of them costs a lot. Furthermore, it's not easy to get them. It's so troublesome to get you a pill cauldron. If it wasn't for the fact that someone needs the venomous wasp spirit liquid, I wouldn't have accepted such a loss-making business deal. She was furious. Such a beautiful and otherworldly woman was actually angry. She didn't even try to cover it up. What a genuine and unpretentious beauty. What are you buying artifacts for? In the future, when your cultivation reaches a certain level and you accumulate enough contribution points, you can apply to the higher-ups to take your artifacts to a forbidden area to improve their quality. That's free. Furthermore, the artifacts in our sect are all peerless treasures. You have them in front of your house. Why are you still eating from the pot and looking at the bowl? I go away. Don't block my business. Seeing your sister, you're still scolding me. Aren't you also not cultivating properly? Why do you have to do some business? You're asking for a beating. No, stay away from me. It seemed he had almost angered Wang Yuzhen. Seeing that her eyebrows were burning with anger, Su Fong quickly retreated and went to the side to wait. Gradually, more and more people came to trade with her. Wang Yuzhen's business was quite good, although each transaction wasn't a big one. If this continued, she would accumulate a shocking amount of wealth. What a good way to make money. But to be able to do business here and be so successful, there naturally had to be a reason. There was also a need for background. If someone had no background, would they be able to do business here? Wang Yuzhen had heard that she also had a beautiful older sister, Wang Yuxian. Just based on her status, she could also do business in the constellation of 9 heavens. This was called connections. No, your Tao item doesn't have any color, and its quality isn't outstanding. Giving you 500,000 immortal stones is already a huge price. The other Tao items are all priced at 800,000 immortal stones. Only mine is that much lower. People are different, so Tao items are naturally different. I'm not purposely making things difficult for you. We're both buyers and sellers. If I spent a lot of money to buy an ordinary Tao item from you, would I be able to sell it? 500,000 is a good price. Go around and see if there's anyone with a higher price than me. Su Fong, who was waiting, suddenly saw a few disciples having an unpleasant discussion with Wang Yuzhen. There were a total of 4 disciples, and 3 of them had sold their Dharma treasures for a good price. But one of them pulled a long face and argued with Wang Yuzhen for a long time. In the end, he couldn't bear to sell it and even offended Wang Yuzhen. That Dharma treasure is a mid-grade Tao item. It's not bad. 500,000 immortal stones isn't even a tenth of his price. At this time, Su Fong thought he was just watching a show. He also looked at the immortal's Dharma treasure. Unexpectedly, Law, who was inside the blood jade, was also watching the show. Su Fongdao was shocked. Law, you're saying that Dharma treasure is a mid-grade Tao item? Yes. Then why can't I see that it's a mid-grade Tao item? When this Tao item lost its master, its primordial spirit also sealed itself. Most ownerless Tao item primordial spirits awaken. Also, the material of this Dharma treasure is a bit different. It seems to be made from deep-sea material. It looks ordinary, but it's a problem with the material. I understand. Suddenly, Su Fong withdrew his will. He strode forward and stopped the unhappy immortal just in time. That person guessed Su Fong's thoughts and followed Su Fong to the side. Su Fong said, I'll also pay 500,000 immortal stones for your flying sword. I just happen to be lacking a Tao item, and I don't have many immortal stones. I can only afford this kind of flying sword. Someone offered 500,000 immortal stones, but I didn't sell it. Why should I sell it to you? The immortal was still very unhappy. Doing business is not about bickering. Moreover, I'm not a businessman. I really lack a Tao item. Seeing that I'm a virtual immortal, I can't take out a large amount of immortal stones, so I don't dare to buy a Tao item easily. Since that senior sister has set the price for this flying sword, I can buy it with confidence. Isn't that right? I won't bargain. Even if it's 500,000 immortal stones, you don't have to be angry with me. You're right. The price can't be higher. Back then, I spent 600,000 immortal stones to buy it. I also want to take out more immortal stones and buy better Dharma treasures. However, I only have so few immortal stones. My life savings. He still wanted a bargain. Su Fong was not an ordinary person. He naturally guessed the other party's thoughts. However, when he took out a storage ring, he put on a helpless expression. The storage ring even released some light from time to time. Senior brother, if you're not willing to part with it, I can't force this transaction. Both of us are willing parties. If the transaction doesn't work out, we shouldn't become enemies. At most, I'll buy a Tao item from someone else, Su Fong said deliberately. He then wanted to give up. Okay, deal. Unexpectedly, the immortal also clapped his hands and closed the deal. 500,000 immortal stones to buy a middle-grade Tao item. Wasn't this a huge profit? After that person left satisfied, Su Fong sucked the black flying sword into the small universe immortal flask and released the illusory fire cloud to burn continuously. He also used a bit of spirit cleansing liquid to water it continuously. In just a short while, the black flying sword released a stunning light. It was transparent and light like a jade. Su Fong came to see Wang Yuzhen again. She just happened to give Su Fong a storage ring. Su Fong looked at it. It was not bad. There were twice as many materials as last time. After giving the immortal stones, Su Fong was very cautious. Senior sister, I have a middle-grade Tao item. I don't know if senior sister wants it. Of course I want a middle-grade Tao item. This is a treasure. Many elite disciples have such a need. You have a middle-grade Tao item. Wang Yuzhen looked up and down suspiciously. Of course I do. I got it by accident. Senior sister, just name a price. If the price is fixed, I'll give it to senior sister. Let me take a look first. Senior sister and I are familiar with each other. I'm just an ordinary disciple. How can I deceive senior sister? Senior sister, just name a price. I won't lose out on a middle-grade Tao item. I haven't seen the shadow of a Tao item yet. How about this? According to the ordinary price, I'll buy it for 50 times the lower-grade Tao item. How about it? How much is the ordinary price? You're really careful. Ordinary low-grade Tao items are priced around 80 immortal stones. I'll give you 1,000,000 immortal stones. Okay, deal. Senior sister, you have to keep your word. I can't go back on my word. Senior sister, please take a look. Is this a middle-grade Tao item? In front of Wang Yuzhen, Su Fong released the black flying sword from before. Middle grade. When Wang Yuzhen saw the black flying sword, she was startled. Then disbelief filled her eyes. Even the divine light in her eyes seemed to collapse. A dozen breaths later, Wang Yuzhen clenched her teeth. This is clearly worth 500,000 immortal stones. Senior sister, don't go back on your word. Su Fong was very calm. You dare take my money? She was so angry that her face turned red like an apple. Wang Yuzhen finally understood. In the end, she helplessly took out the immortal stones. Chapter 9:20. It turned out that money was so easy to earn. Su Fong took the storage ring and did not check the immortal stones. Wang Yuzhen glared at Su Fong, as if she wanted to snatch the immortal stones back. Remember this. You're too unruly. He was trading with me, but you actually sabotaged it. You're embarrassing me. I'm innocent. You're innocent? This flying sword was only worth 500,000 immortal stones before. Now, it's worth 20 times more. Do you think I stole the money? I'm really innocent. I saw that senior sister didn't want it and chased him away. I didn't care about ordinary treasures, so I made a move. In the end, I got a bargain. I said you don't know the rules, so you don't know the rules. Don't let me see you again. In any case, Wang Yuzhen was still an expert. She was unwilling to give up. Fortunately, when she saw that there were many disciples around her, she could only suffer in silence. Why aren't you leaving? Senior sister, take all the immortal stones in the storage ring as the payment for the pill cauldron. I'll wait for the goods. After a while, I'll come and ask senior sister for advice. Su Fong hurriedly left the storage ring behind, bowed, and left with his tail between his legs. How'd he find out that this was a middle-grade Dao artifact? I can't believe I made a mistake. Although I'm not as good as the experts in the Chamber of Commerce, I'm still... Could it be that this kid is not simple? Su Fong was nowhere to be seen. Wang Yuzhen was still in a daze for half an hour. Suddenly, her eyes were filled with shock. She grabbed the storage ring tightly and continued to work. Huangfu Training Hall. After returning to the side peak, Su Fong found out that baby snoring and the rest had not returned yet. They probably earned a lot this time and would brag about it for a few days. He also needed to cultivate. After sealing the training hall, he continued to take out various materials and burn them with the illusory fire cloud. He also took out the 3 Dharma treasures. After the fusion, the 3 Dharma treasures had absorbed the essence of various materials, and their quality had increased. They were gradually catching up to Su Fong's strength. If he used the Starry Daylight sword now, it wouldn't be a problem to deal with a virtual immortal 4 Dao Realm Immortal. However, if he wanted to deal with a virtual immortal 5 Dao Realm Immortal, which was an immortal Su Fong Realm Immortal, it would be dangerous as it would be easily damaged. The rate of advancement of a transcendent artifact could not be compared to that of a human cultivator. Just as Baby Snoring had said, he could give up on 3 transcendent artifacts. However, all 3 transcendent artifacts were very good, and it was difficult to give up on one of them. Fortunately, his 16th Yang Meridian had been born, and he had also received 3 profound sword talismans from Out Yin Chanen. Upgrading 3 Dharma treasures did not affect him too much. Others felt that it was impossible, but Su Fong insisted. Shu, lower your voice. Don't disturb young master's cultivation. What news did you hear? The elder from Proud Heaven Peak was released after being shackled for 100,000 years. Now, many people are going to Proud Heaven Peak to watch the fun. No wonder young master Bao didn't come back after going to Drifting Cloud Lake. He probably went there to watch the fun. It's a pity that as servants, we can't enter the other dojos. Otherwise, we would go take a look as well. Another period of time passed. Su Fong, who was in the middle of cultivation, suddenly heard a commotion outside. At first, he thought that Baby Snoring had returned. However, after listening carefully, he realized that it was just a few servants whispering. However, he heard everything clearly. The flame suddenly disappeared. The illusory fire cloud has come to the great world. It's 10 times more powerful than Xianhuang, 6 Paths Pagoda's fire-type immortal flame. Proud Heaven Peak. How could he still cultivate in peace? Proud Heaven Peak. Proud Heaven Chanhen, an elder of a dojo, was punished for 100,000 years and regained his freedom. Such a big event would definitely cause a sensation in the entire constellation of 9 heavens. Should I go? This was a question that Su Fong was very conflicted about. He guessed that many people were at Proud Heaven Peak now, waiting to see Proud Heaven Chanhen. If he went, he would not be able to see him. Back then, if I didn't care about the Huangfu clan and listened to Proud Heaven Chanen's arrangement and entered Proud Heaven Peak to cultivate, he sighed and gave up in the end. He hesitated for 3 days. Then he continued to cultivate. Currently, he mainly cultivated the illusory fire cloud. If he wanted to refine pills and improve the quality of magic treasures, he would need a powerful immortal flame. The true fire that he had mastered in the small world did not have much room for improvement anymore. Xianhuang's 6 Paths Pagoda also had fire-type seals, but they were only average. Only the illusory fire cloud was not easy to cultivate in the great world. The 5 elements Dharma spells are broad and profound. I often use earth-type and wood-type Dharma spells. Fire-type Dharma spells should also become one of my main Dharma spells. In the past, I couldn't cultivate the illusory fire cloud mainly because it came from the great world and I couldn't control it. However, it's different now. I'm an immortal, and I can start to cultivate this real Dharma spell. I believe that the mysterious senior in the ancient mirror inherited this Dharma spell from her. She must be a peerless existence. At this moment, he was still sitting cross-legged. He was not cultivating, but meditating to decide the direction of his future cultivation. With his current situation, it was impossible for everything to go smoothly. If he wanted to cultivate in the constellation of 9 heavens and become strong, he would have to find a way to deal with all the difficulties. Wang Yuzhen had described everything too simply. Perhaps she had a background and could make use of the constellation of 9 heavens resources. What about Su Fang? It was impossible for an ordinary disciple to casually enjoy the resources of the Star Palace. Illusory fire cloud. He had completely merged with the illusory fire cloud. In the small world, he could see many imprints that he had not grasped and could not see clearly. However, there was still a part that was very mysterious. It turned out that he could not control the illusory fire cloud just by becoming an immortal. He would probably have to become a peerless expert to be able to truly merge with this Dharma spell. The illusory fire cloud's cultivation was mainly based on the golden core. The overall cultivation was similar, but there were still many differences. From the imprints that he grasped now, the illusory fire cloud cultivation was mainly based on the golden core. Later on, it flowed into the divine aperture and merged with the domain. There were also other cultivation methods, such as condensing the cloud fire vein in the arms or deep in the body. Most of the cultivation methods required one to cultivate one's physical body into a true body. It turned out that the illusory fire cloud was a true body. This true body was called the Fire Cloud Emperor Body. The Fire Cloud Emperor Body. No, the illusory fire cloud still has many secrets that I can't see through now. I can't easily cultivate the Fire Cloud Emperor Body. I have to enter the ancient mirror. This time, Su Fang calmed down. He had also matured a lot. Back then, because of his immaturity, he had allowed the Heaven Neck Spirit Ring to merge with Bai Ling. In the end, Bai Ling had almost died. He stripped off a young immortal and entered the Chaos Sacred Realm. After entering the Red Dharma treasure space, Su Fang suddenly realized that he was no longer dizzy from the pressure. He was much more relaxed than before. After landing, he could even take a few steps forward. However, this young immortal would probably disappear after a few steps. Obviously, his cultivation was constantly improving, and his ability to control the Chaos Sacred Realm was also improving. After a period of time, a familiar chill suddenly swept over. Why are you here again? Even if you become an immortal, you are still too far away from being an expert. The mysterious woman seemed to be formed by the cold air of the Nine. She was like an elder with a reprimanding tone. Su Fang said politely, "After I became in essence immortal, I found that the illusory fire cloud is not simple. It seems that I will eventually cultivate a Fire Cloud Emperor Body. I came to ask for guidance so that I can figure out how to cultivate this true body. The reason why I taught you this cultivation technique was to let you have a true body. However, later on, when I saw that you relied on yourself to obtain the Black Lotus true body, I didn't ask you to continue cultivating the illusory fire cloud. A perfected physical body is not as simple as you think. In fact, the limit of perfected physical body cultivation is to cultivate multiple true bodies. Some of the ancient almighties had several true bodies and couldn't be killed. Not to mention a drop of blood, even a strand of hair could survive. Now, I finally understand why the 7-star child couldn't cultivate a second clone after so many years in the Wutan realm. Instead, I fused with the Black Lotus true body. Yes, it's because he didn't have a perfected physical body, while you did. If it weren't for Senior's reminder, I wouldn't have been able to figure this out. The 7-star child is an immortal, while I'm immortal. He couldn't cultivate a true body for more than 100,000 years, but I easily fused with it. In front of those true experts, even if you are an immortal, you are still immortal. Those experts' lifespans aren't the 10,000 years, 100,000 years, or 1,000,000 years that you know. The mysterious woman said slowly, "Some things seem to be coincidental, but they have karma. The things you don't understand now will be easily solved as your knowledge increases. There's no need to ask me. Let's talk about the illusory fire cloud. This cultivation technique was created by a friend of mine in the past. It was a supreme fire-type divine ability created by him. Unfortunately, he died in the end. He cultivated the fire cloud emperor body. When he used it, his true body was nowhere to be seen. His flesh and blood turned into a sea of flames that blotted out the sky. The flames swallowed the mountains, passed through the mountain ridges, passed through the forests, and poured into the vast world. Everything was burned to ashes. Such a peerless true body is unparalleled in this world. Su Fang's ears went numb. What kind of scene was that? If it was a divine ability, it could reach such a level. But if it was a true body, a divine ability formed from a physical body, it was hard to believe that a person's physical body could still have such potential after reaching the pinnacle. The Fire Cloud Emperor body isn't easy to cultivate. While cultivating, you also have to search for all kinds of strange flames. Strange flames are also known as flames from the outer realms, abyssal flames, desolate flames, and astral flames. No matter what they are, they need countless years to condense into a strange flame seed. This kind of strange flame seed is very difficult to form. It needs time and some kind of opportunity. They are rare. Once you obtain one, you have to fuse with it. This way, you can temper your physical body. Moreover, you are a great perfection realm expert. In addition, you have supreme yang energy, so it is easier for you to fuse with the strange flame seed than ordinary people. In this world, no one dares to directly use their body to devour the strange flame. The illusory fire cloud is so extraordinary. Cultivate according to the basic cultivation technique first, then slowly search for the strange flame seed. I hope you can cultivate the Fire Cloud Emperor body. If you have another true body, you might also stand in the world of those true experts in the future. This junior will work hard. Whoosh! When Su Fang nodded, the cold air suddenly disappeared completely. This young immortal also returned to Su Fang's body. The Fire Cloud Emperor body sounds incomparably domineering. He didn't expect the illusory fire cloud to have such a background. He immediately spent a lot of energy to fuse with the deeper imprints of the illusory fire cloud. After grasping it, he officially began to cultivate according to the orthodox cultivation technique. Soon, when he was fully immersed in the cultivation state of the illusory fire cloud, his eyebrows, eyes, head, and skin were actually floating with a layer of faint flames. Senior is right. The illusory fire cloud, because of the pure yang energy and the great perfection realm body, allowed me to easily cultivate the imprints. There are many powerful techniques recorded in the illusory fire cloud. One of them is a cultivation method that allows the cultivator's eyes to turn into a pair of burning eyes. It allows the illusory fire cloud to specifically explode through the eyes, allowing the eyeballs to first turn into the fire cloud true body. In the future, I will use the illusory fire cloud to burn my eyes and start cultivating the fire cloud true body for my eyes. Cultivate the burning heaven eyes. In an instant, most of the flames disappeared. Then, a burning flame aura shot out from his eyes. Chapter 921. After cultivating for a few days, Su Fang stopped cultivating when baby snoring returned. He also learned some things about Ao Tian Peak for baby snoring. For example, Ao Tian Chonghen had regained his freedom, but he was not promoted back to an elder. However, Ao Tian Peak would continue to maintain its status. Now, everyone was talking about Ao Tian Peak's future. Would it continue to be under Ao Tian Chonghen's care, or would it be replaced by another elder and become a new training ground? No matter what happened to Ao Tian Peak, everyone respected Ao Tian Chonghen. This was because he was already a peerless powerhouse in the outside world 100,000 years ago. Some things could not be changed. Even if Ao Tian Chonghen was not an elder, he was still an irreplaceable existence in the constellation of 9 heavens. Let's go. I just remembered that you should be qualified to cultivate the 9 heavenly stars minor art. How could a beginner's technique suit you? After chatting for a while, Baby Snoring asked Su Fang about his recent cultivation. Once he learned that Su Fang did not have an official technique, he brought Su Fang to the main peak of Huangfu Peak. The two of them traveled through the mountain stream and could vaguely see the main peak of Huangfu. Baby Snoring suddenly asked sneakily, "Hee hee, are your eyes really that sharp?" Su Fong was stunned. "My eyes are sharp. I made a lot of money from the last beast battle. If you didn't pick the beast, I wouldn't have made so much money. I'm just guessing. I can't guarantee that I'll make a lot of money every time. Take good care of yourself and cultivate well. Just tell me if you need anything. We'll make a lot of money next time. When's the next beast battle?" "Once a year." "Hee, if I can make money on my own, I won't have to ask Grandpa and Mom for money. Big Sis will definitely look at me differently." Okay. We'll go next time. I've made some money too. I still have to buy some things from Senior Sister Wang Yuzhen." So he was talking about the beast battle. Su Fong agreed. He could also make a lot of money through the beast battle. There were plenty of hedonistic rich people, and the constellation of 9 heavens was a major power. Now that the Su Fong had found a way to make money, how could they not make good use of it? In Xianhuang's 6 Paths Pagoda, there were tens of thousands of people asking for food at all times. If he didn't make money, he would run out of food. Huangfu Peak. Brother Bao was indeed Brother Bao. Everyone who saw him had to call him Young Master Bao. Su Fong, together with the Young Master Bao, could come to Huangfu Peak openly for the first time. As expected of one of the 9 great Taoist temples, the main peak exuded an indescribable, surging power of heaven and earth, as if it wanted to lift the entire mountain. There must be some peerless formation or peerless Tao item under the mountain. The main peak was very big, and there were countless palaces and caves around it. There were also many restrictions that ordinary disciples could not enter. They soon arrived at the main hall, which was surrounded by many golden buildings. No one was flying in the air in such a large plaza. Almost everyone was walking through the plaza. Huangfu Hao. He had become a virtual immortal and reached the 4th Tao realm. Su Fong's perfected ability was already used to the shackles of the great realm. When he heard someone exclaim, he immediately looked over and saw that it was a dozen disciples from Tiger Subduing Valley. The leader was still Huangfu Hao's familiar face. These people were in disbelief. With their cultivation as official disciples, they could only walk around the 2 sides of the plaza. However, Su Fong followed Baby Snoring and walked past the countless people in the center of the plaza, just like a cave immortal disciple. Huangfu Hao was probably regretting letting Su Fong enter Baby Snoring's palace. Without that, there would not be the current Huangfu Shaoying. Young Master. When they arrived at the main hall, even the disciples on duty greeted Baby Snoring politely. When Su Fong stepped into the main hall, he saw 2 familiar faces at first glance. Huangfu Cloud Sea, Huangfu Duan. These 2 people were indeed the higher-ups of Huangfu Peak. They were reprimanding some disciples in the main hall, and their cultivation levels were much higher than Baby Snoring's. They were the core members of the Huangfu Training Hall. Fortunately, neither of Huangfu Cloud Sea nor Huangfu Duan noticed Su Fong. He quickly lowered his head and followed Baby Snoring around the main hall. When they arrived at the side, Baby Snoring called for an expert to come over. If they were not the higher-ups of Huangfu Duan or Huangfu Cloud Sea, the average expert would have to listen to Baby Snoring. Baby Snoring was the strongest expert in Huangfu Peak and the grandson of the most powerful elder. Perhaps the power of Huangfu Peak would fall into the hands of Baby Snoring in the future. The immortal checked Su Fong's token and said awkwardly, "Shaoying of Huangfu has indeed completed the initial task. Young Master, according to the rules, only a portion of the first level of the skill can be taught. He needs to complete missions and perform meritorious deeds, especially breakthroughs, before he can accept the task. It's not just a matter of a few words." Baby Snoring sat there and stared at the immortal. "That's true. If it's you, Young Master, you could just say a few words. But if it's an ordinary disciple, he has to follow the rules. After all, I'm the one who recorded it. If he doesn't have any records of his missions, breakthroughs, or cultivation, I can't afford to offend him if he receives the skill for free. I'm not asking you to offend him. How about this? There are quite a lot of rules. I won't make things difficult for you, and I don't want to look for other elders either. I'll try not to trouble you. You can do as you see fit. My people can't be like ordinary disciples. Then the immortal was in a difficult position now. This young master, Su Fong, who had been silent all this while, finally realized that baby snoring was really a young master. He wasn't good in other aspects, but he was arrogant and used his power to bully others. He was a true expert in bullying his disciples. Brother Bao, it's okay to have as many rules as you want. I'll just follow them as long as everyone follows the rules. Su Fong quickly stood up and spoke up for the immortal. What do you think? Brother Bao glanced at the immortal again. Well, it's okay, it's okay. Young master, how about this? We don't need any other rules. As long as Huangfu Shaoying personally comes here every time he completes a mission and breaks through, he can also receive pills and resources. What do you think? It's okay. Since it's a rule, we naturally have to follow it. All right, then I'll give you a portion of the first level of the skill first. Baby snoring finally let the disciple off. He was really a young master who knew how to torture and make things difficult for others. That immortal was completely speechless. Soon, the immortal returned with Su Fong's token. He also engraved some of the first level of the 9 heavenly stars minor art on it. To that immortal, baby snoring was the god of plague. After sending him away, Su Fong could hear him praying to God. When they returned to the side peak, baby snoring brought a bunch of bootlickers to go sightseeing. But Su Fong stayed behind. When they returned to the temporary residence, Su Fong couldn't wait to learn the 9 heavenly stars minor art. He activated the token, and a large amount of immortal characters immediately entered the depths of his mind. Every immortal character contained endless starlight, as if they came from the bright stars in the sky. After a long time, after comprehending it, his breath was filled with the aura of starlight. The 9 heavenly stars minor art is indeed extraordinary. The cultivation direction of this skill is to let the cultivator obtain the essence of the world from the world and cultivate the power of the world. The first level of the skill is mainly to sit cross-legged, absorb, open the meridians of the body, communicate with the stars, and absorb the power of the world to temper the body. I've long possessed the power of a world, and I've already formed an astral body. I only need to go through these basic cultivation techniques once. Compared to the ethereal quintessence, the 9 heavens minor constellation art can only be considered as a top-tier cultivation technique. The ethereal enlightenment is too mysterious and vast. I only understand 1/10 of it now. However, the 9 heavenly stars minor art is different. It was cultivated by countless disciples and experts of a huge power for generations. Countless cultivation experiences condensed and opened the door to cultivation for future disciples. As long as the disciples diligently cultivate step by step, they will eventually reach the peak. The ethereal enlightenment, on the other hand, requires constant exploration. The first level of the skill is mainly to let the disciple sit cross-legged under the stars at all times and temper the body according to the hand seals, the skill, and the incantation. To me, these are just superficial skills, but I still need to go through them once. Only then will the true energy in my body become more and more similar to the origin of the stars. The ethereal enlightenment and the world fragment in the constellation of 9 heavens. I estimate that in terms of cultivating the power of the world, I should reach the level of Huangfu Cloud Sea and Huangfu Peak. Although my realm is insufficient, the power of the world is condensed in the world fragment. This is something that ordinary people can't achieve. It took a lot of effort and time. After assimilating a portion of the 9 heavenly stars minor aspect art and cultivating it, Su Fong realized just how extraordinary the ethereal quintessence was. The 9 heavenly stars minor art was also extraordinary, but it couldn't compare to the ethereal enlightenment. Perhaps it was because the ethereal enlightenment was so mysterious that Su Fong had to rely on himself to explore it. Su Fong began to cultivate the skill. He went outside the palace and sat cross-legged on a mountain peak. Facing the sky, he formed a few complicated and simple hand seals and incantations and began to absorb the power of the world fragment. Immediately, a whirlpool of spiritual energy surged toward Su Fong and seeped into his skin. It would take at least 100 years for an ordinary disciple to reach such a level, but I managed to do it in the blink of an eye. With the true quintessence of ethereal quintessence and the world fragments that I have assimilated into my dimension, cultivating the 9 heavenly stars minor aspect art is as easy as eating and drinking. After cultivating for half a year, Su Fong returned to the palace. Cultivating the 9 heavenly stars minor art was no longer his main goal. The most important thing was the power of the world contained in the constellation of 9 heavens and the various resources inside. Soon, baby snoring came to look for him. It turned out that a year had just passed. It was time to go to Drifting Cloud Lake to make a fortune. Of course, Su Fong was willing to do so. Moreover, he had reached the end of his supply of immortal essence pills. He only had a small portion left, and it wouldn't be enough to feed the big goblin for a year. Drifting Cloud Lake. There were still many disciples from the 9 great Taoist halls, but there weren't many disciples from the Bodhi Spirit World Taoist halls. The beast battle hadn't started yet. Baby Snoring was bragging to those young masters, and Su Fong was already waiting for Wang Yuzhen. Wang Yuzhen arrived late. When she saw Su Fong, she was a little surprised, but she quickly returned to normal. When she learned that Su Fong wanted to buy immortal essence pills, she asked him to wait for a while. At this time, a few people suddenly came to look for Wang Yuzhen to sell a few Tao artifacts. One of them said that the Dharma artifact was good and asked for a high price. Wang Yuzhen argued with him for a while, seemingly unwilling to buy an ordinary Tao artifact. Luo, take a look at that Tao artifact. It turned out that Su Fong was preparing to pick up a bargain again. Naturally, he wasn't the one who could identify the Dharma artifact. It was Luo, who was inside the Blood Jade. Luo also had nothing to do in the Blood Jade, so he took a quick look. Not bad. It's also a mid-grade Tao artifact. However, it's very troublesome to seal it. With layers of seals, the Dharma artifact's spirit chi can't penetrate it. If an ordinary person doesn't spend time activating it, it's hard to stimulate the aura of a mid-grade Tao artifact. I can pick up a bargain again. Su Fong immediately went up to those people and spent 2 million immortal stones to buy it. If it was an ordinary low-grade Tao artifact, it wouldn't be that expensive. Some peak low-grade Tao artifacts were worth more than that. Su Fong could be considered to have picked up a bargain again. Now I could buy a large amount of immortal essence pills. It's enough for 5 to 10 years. Su Fong put away the Dharma artifact with a smile. After a while, Wang Yuzhen asked him to go get the immortal essence pills. Chapter 922. Wang Yuzhen coldly sized up Su Fong and took out the immortal pills. You sure are rich to buy so many immortal essence pills at once. Look at a virtual immortal disciple like you. In the entire sect, other than the young masters, who else can be as rich as you? No, I only bought low-grade immortal essence pills. If I really had the money, I would have bought middle-grade or even high-grade pills. After receiving the pills, the several tens of thousands of commanders finally had food to eat. What? Do you have anything you want to trade with me today? Yes, I have another treasure here. It's a middle-grade Tao artifact. I don't know if Senior Sister wants it. Where did you get a middle-grade Tao artifact? About that, Senior Sister doesn't need to ask. Come here. Unexpectedly, just as Su Fong was pretending to be ignorant and thinking about how he could earn a huge sum of money from this, Wang Yuzhen waved her hand and told him to go inside. After Su Fong came in, Wang Yuzhen didn't wait for him to open his mouth. Suddenly, an aura formed from her cold eyes, and Su Fong immediately became like a statue, unable to move in front of her. Senior Sister, what are you doing? Su Fong couldn't understand. How did this woman's thoughts come so easily? You're still pretending? Pretending. Wang Yuzhen coldly sized up Su Fong, as if she wanted to see through everything about Su Fong. Why aren't you taking out that treasure? Otherwise, I'll take care of you in front of so many people. What treasure? I don't have the treasure Senior Sister wants. You think I don't know? Wang Yuzhen suddenly controlled her aura and made Su Fong face outside. At this moment, Su Fong was suddenly shocked. It turned out that the immortal standing in front of him was the disciple who had traded with him for a magic treasure just now. If you stand by the river, How can your shoes not be wet? He instantly felt a chill in his body and mind. He glanced at Wang Yuzhen, who was glaring at him. He didn't understand why this woman was so powerful to actually use such a method. It was very obvious. The last time he had picked up a treasure, it was an accident. This time it was a trap. He had fallen into a trap, and the mastermind behind the scenes was this young woman from the Bodhi spirit realm who was as beautiful as a fairy. Who would have thought that such an ice beauty would play such a trick? Su Fong did not guard against this Wang Yuzhen at all. Wang Yuzhen once again controlled her divine power, pressing down on Su Fong's body until it creaked. He was like a newborn baby who could break his bones at any time. She laughed mockingly and said, "Why aren't you taking it out? Do you really want me to teach you a lesson? With my status, let alone bullying you. Even if I cripple you, what can you do? Even your annoying limbs will be crippled for you." 5 limbs? Where do I have 5 limbs? All men have it. You don't. You hate that thing the most. You. She said 5 limbs. While Su Fong was confused, some people in Xianhuang's 6 Paths Pagoda could no longer see the past. Hu King Green Feather. Su Fong suddenly quivered. His heart was about to jump out of his throat. Then he saw Wang Yuzhen's fiendish appearance and thought about crippling his 5 limbs. Quickly nod your head. You're still honest. After releasing the magic treasure, Wang Yuzhen retracted her divine power. Su Fong was pitiful. He was like a piece of fat meat on the chopping board, waiting to be cut by Wang Yuzhen. Don't look at me like that. Take out the magic treasure, and I won't bully you. Tell me the truth. Wang Yuzhen stopped doing business and asked Su Fong to sit down. She lowered her voice and said, "Why were you able to see the true quality of the magic treasure twice?" Of course, he could not say it. Su Fong suddenly wiped his neck and said, "Senior sister, this is my secret. I can only see the quality of the magic treasure with some luck. Even if you beat me to death, I can't do it casually. Why would I want to kill you? Am I that kind of person? I'm very gentle. I don't want a gentle senior sister. I'd rather senior sister be a tomboy. Then I won't make things difficult for you." Wang Yuzhen suddenly retracted her oppressive gaze and instantly returned to being an ordinary disciple with an ordinary aura. Su Fong was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly sat up straight and said, "Really?" Although Wang Yuzhen stopped attacking, she was cold to the bone. "Of course I'm serious, but you're indeed dishonest. You stole and made money from me. You're not honest. I can punish you for this. Do you think I'll let you go so easily? Senior apprentice sister's little life. My little life is worthless. It's worthless to you, but it's very valuable to me. I'm a businessman. What's your name? What's your name?" Huangfu Xiaoying from Huangfu Dojo. Su Fong hurriedly begged, "I'm just a humble disciple. Senior sister, please let me live. I'm just an ant in front of senior sister. You don't need to do anything. I'll be trampled to death 100 times. Senior sister, you're so beautiful. You can't let an ant like me ruin your mood." It was really useful. Wang Yuzhen's expression became more natural. "You're really good at talking. I just want to tell you that if you do this to anyone else, I can guarantee that no one will let you go. If you want me to let you go, promise me one thing. In the future, if you're free, help me appraise treasures." Appraise treasures. Hearing this, he suddenly felt weightless. "No." Wang Yuzhen's eyes suddenly swept across him coldly. I'm willing. As long as senior sister doesn't want my life, I'll definitely work hard for senior sister in the future. Senior sister will be very grateful. I'll go back and make a memorial tablet to worship senior sister. You really have a glib tongue. This is a rune talisman. In the future, when I look for you, just activate it. When you sense it, come to Flowing Cloud Lake. Yes. Su Fong put away the rune talisman and relaxed a lot. But in fact, he was still suppressed to the point that he couldn't move freely. You can go now. Remember not to use your little tricks in the future. Sorry for disturbing senior sister. I've committed a great sin. In the blink of an eye, Su Fong turned around and disappeared. Huangfu Xiaoying, a virtual immortal disciple. Looking at his token, he shouldn't be a disciple of the Huangfu clan. I didn't expect a newly promoted official disciple to have such abilities. Wang Yuzhen glanced at him and returned to normal, continuing to do business with others. Why are you only back now? In the busiest beast combat space. When Su Fang came to Baby Snoring's side, he made Baby Snoring very anxious. That Wang Yu is really not easy to deal with. She's also very powerful. If I really appraise treasures for her, won't I be led by the nose by her in the future? Won't I be in the constellation of 9 heavens then? It's getting more and more troublesome. At this moment, Su Fang suddenly used his wisdom and immediately complained to Baby Snoring. I caused trouble, big trouble. What's wrong? Who dares to bully you? Don't be afraid, Brother Bao is here. The young master got angry when he heard this. He's Brother Bao. Hurry up and pretend. Su Fang said eloquently and pitifully. I had nothing to do just now, so I went to buy some refining materials. In the end, I went to Senior Sister Wang Yuzhen's place and secretly bought a treasure that Senior Sister Wang Yuzhen liked from one of her senior brothers. In the end, I was discovered by her, and she said that I have to follow her in the future and be her pawn. You didn't steal it or rob it. Even if you did, so what? Next time you come to Drifting Cloud Lake, you have to follow me everywhere. Who does Wang Yuzhen think she is? She's just a core disciple of the Bodhi spiritual world. Baby Snoring patted his chest and anxiously pulled Su Fang to the front. There were 3 big goblins inside the barrier again. Everything else is trivial. Earning money is the most important thing. Once we have money, I'll bring you along and use the money to smash that Wang Yuzhen. We'll make her kneel and beg for forgiveness. Kneel and beg for forgiveness. These are all trivial matters. Once we have money, you can take her in as a concubine. If I had the ability, I wouldn't have given you this chance. Take a good look. I understand. Out of desperation, he could only rely on Baby Snoring. Although he was a good-for-nothing young master, he didn't go overboard. In fact, he didn't have any tricks up his sleeves. After sizing it up, Su Fang finally locked onto a big goblin. He even secretly placed a bet with Baby Snoring. Young Master Bao, tell us, which big goblin are you betting on? Yeah, you made a lot of money last time. The odds were 10 to 1. We lost badly. The big goblins began to kill each other inside the barrier. Some of the disciples approached Baby Snoring with smiles on their faces, trying to curry favor with him. Although Baby Snoring was a good-for-nothing, he knew how to be a miser. He wouldn't reveal the truth. However, he still said that there were golden lotuses growing out of the ground in front of everyone. How was that a lie? He was obviously boasting. He was talking nonstop in front of so many people. It was as if there were 3 big goblins. Tens of thousands of disciples could only hear him talking loudly. About 6 hours later. Young Master Bao is awesome. Young Master Bao is awesome. The battle ended, and the results were out. Among the crowd, countless disciples started to boast about Baby Snoring. Because the results were just as he boasted, he was right. In front of so many people, Baby Snoring received a large amount of immortal stones. His followers also quietly made a fortune. Luck, it's all luck. Some of the young masters who had lost miserably naturally hated Baby Snort. Young Master Tianyin was one of them. It seemed like he had lost quite a lot, especially when he knew which big goblin Baby Snoring was bragging about. He insisted on betting against Baby Snoring, but in the end he could only watch as Baby Snoring had the last laugh. He won't be happy for long. It's impossible for his luck to be so good this time. Good things don't happen more than 3 times. Crouching Immortal Young Master and some of the other young masters immediately left with young Master Tianyin. I made a fortune again. If this continues, I can slowly accumulate wealth and get closer to becoming a pill cauldron. The crowd gradually left Drifting Cloud Lake. Su Fang followed Baby Snoring and the others, feeling very pleased. Of course, he was happy to be rich. Many young masters also came to the side peak. They all wanted to kneel down and lick Baby Snoring's boots. Baby Snoring glanced at Su Fang from time to time. This was to tell Su Fang how good it was to be rich and that they would continue to get rich together next time. Su Fang temporarily left. When he returned to his palace, he thought of Wang Yuzhen. You have to be careful when you meet people in the future. Inside the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda, Green Feather Monarch reminded Su Fong in the tone of an elder. A lowly person will be stepped on, a good horse will be ridden. I have no status and no strength. For now, I can only rely on baby snoring. Su Fong nodded and took out a large amount of immortal yuan pills. Such a spectacular scene was rare even in the constellation of 9 heavens. This time, every big goblin and the slaves were given immortal pills. There was still a lot left, and they were given to the most powerful big goblins. In order to speed up, and because there was no shortage of immortal pills at the moment, Su Fong also began to cultivate, swallowing immortal pills one after another. He also cultivated the illusory fire cloud and urged the immortals to refine the 3 Dharma treasures, allowing the 3 Dharma treasures to continuously improve along with Su Fong's strength. About a month later, suddenly, there was a movement in his storage ring. Su Fong sensed it and seemed to know who it was. He took out a rune talisman. It turned out that it was left by Wang Yuzhen. After activating it, Wang Yuzhen's cold voice came from inside. "Come to Drifting Cloud Lake." Su Fong immediately replied, "Sorry, senior sister. I'm busy. I asked you to come over. Why are you wasting time? Be careful, or I'll teach you a lesson." Wang Yuzhen's tone was angry and surprised. "I'm not free. Let's talk when I'm free. Sorry, I won't disturb senior sister." You. With a grab, the rune talisman sealed itself and entered the storage ring like a piece of jade. Chapter 923. Hee hee. Do you still think I'm an ant that you can control? Wang Yuzhen's expression was probably very ugly right now. Su Fong was secretly happy. Now that he had babies snoring to protect him, he did not have to worry about what Wang Yuzhen could do to him. Last time, I killed the 2 disciples sent by Huangfu Duan, but he's been very calm. This is very unusual. For the sake of that Huangfu Xiaoyue, he will definitely think of ways to get rid of me. He thought that he could defeat me by sending 2 ordinary disciples. Next time, he will probably send a cave immortal. As long as I'm in the constellation of 9 heavens, Huangfu Duan can't do anything to me. The resources of the sect are also not bad. The items traded at Drifting Cloud Lake are all inferior. I have to go out and carry out a mission to suppress the big goblin and increase my strength. He thought of Huangfu Duan. He thought a mission. This trip to Huangfu Main Peak made him want to go out and carry out a mission. It was not for the 9 heavenly stars small art, but to suppress the big goblin, to increase his strength. Also, Su Fong realized that he was gradually becoming more and more quiet. Quiet could also be called laziness. Coming to the constellation of 9 heavens and having baby snoring as his backing, it could be said that with his abilities, it would not be a problem for him to become a high-ranking disciple in the future. Perhaps it was because of his subconscious thought that he gradually changed his cultivation method. If he cultivated peacefully all day long, although it would increase his strength, it would also destroy his own will. From a small world to a large world, how many corpses would one have to step on to become an immortal? After making up his mind, he went to look for baby snoring. He still had to ask Brother Bao for leave before he could go to Huangfu Main Peak. Huangfu Main Peak. "Sir, I just received news from my subordinates. That Huangfu Xiaoying is accepting a mission. Behind a main peak in a palace. In a formation, more than 10 disciples were sitting cross-legged above a well that contained starlight. They formed the same seal and absorbed the starlight aura. Huangfu Main Peak floated at the front, eerily staring at each disciple as they cultivated. At this moment, an afterimage flashed by and bowed to him. It's finally time to carry out a mission. Last time, I came to the main peak with that trash. I wanted to teach him a lesson, but I had to give that trash some face. Huangfu immediately said to Huang Ying, "Immediately find a few disciples who are at the peak of the spirit celestial stage and are willing to join my family. I will tell you the details of Xiao Ying's mission later. Tell them to think of a way to kill him. All right, this disciple will personally take care of this matter. Go." A barrier separated the afterimage from the body. Huangfu took another step back and arrived at another barrier. He activated a rune talisman and injected it into his primordial spirit. After a while, an extremely young man's voice came from the rune talisman. "Godfather, is Huangfu Yinhai targeting me again? No, I said last time that after killing Huangfu Huang, you just have to hide outside. After killing Huangfu Shaoying, there won't be any witnesses. You don't have to hide anymore. Although you can't return to the constellation of 9 heavens, I will use my connections to let you join another powerful force. Huangfu Shaoying is a good name. Huangfu Huang Shaoying, I met this Huangfu Shaoying once before. Unfortunately, I didn't expect it to be him. Godfather, why don't I personally take action this time and get rid of this person? This way, I won't be in danger, and Godfather won't have to worry about that Huangfu Yunhai. You can't come out. Do I need you to kill an ant? I focus on cultivating my Tao heart. All these years, I have never thought of becoming a Tao companion with a woman. It's a pity. Fortunately, I've accepted you. I don't want you to be harmed by Huangfu Yunhai. Don't worry. Father will ensure that you become a powerful person in the future. Remember, hide well. Yes, I'll wait for Godfather's news. Buzz. The rune talisman suddenly quieted down. It drilled into Huangfu Yunhai's palm and disappeared into it like a piece of ice. Huangfu Yunhai, if I don't get the position of future elder, you won't get it either. This is all because of your son's bad luck. He learned from you that his heart is like a poisonous scorpion. That's why he ended up like this. Huangfu Yunhai's sharp eyebrows felt as if they could instantly destroy the surrounding barrier. Outside the constellation of 9 heavens Dao Hall, in the air above the desolate ruins, a flying sword pierced through the air. It was Su Fong, who was standing on the starry daylight sword. However, just as he left the edge of the ruins and entered the boundless void, he suddenly felt movement behind him. As I expected, I was tailed the last time when I was accepting a mission and was discovered. This time, I'm accepting a mission at the peak of Huangfu Mountain. Huangfu Mountain must have heard about it. As he advanced to the 4 Daos of the virtual immortal realm, his abilities became even more extraordinary. He slowed down a little and saw a total of 4 astral palaces wandering around the edges of the ruins in the constellation of 9 heavens. Good timing. It just so happens that my greater demons are lacking food. Come. He leisurely flew into the void. The 4 auras behind him followed. They were probably worried that this was still the Astral Palace's territory and did not dare to release their true speed. Then, he sent his consciousness into the token. This mission is actually to the illusory snow ground. What a coincidence. However, it's going to be tough. I have to go there for half a year and cooperate with the sect's disciples to clean up the ruins and build a sealed Dao Hall. Illusory snow ground. How could Su Fong forget that dangerous place? Russell, a flying sword carrying an immortal pass through the void nebula, and some broken objects. This place felt like a chaotic world when the heavens and earth were just separated. Fortunately, there were starlight and nebulas that would bring starlight to the world. Unknowingly, a year passed. Su Fong suddenly flew into a relatively large piece of material. After a few breaths, 4 black-robed men followed closely from behind. They looked at each other and spread out in 4 directions, quietly sneaking into the object. The object was an irregular mountain ridge and rock. It was estimated to be 5 miles in diameter. They're here. Everyone, get ready. In the ruins, Su Fong, Green Feather King, Bai Ling, the Undying Turtle, and more than a dozen slaves formed a circle and surrounded the center of the ruins. He used the power of the world and fused it with his Earth-type divine ability to seal the power of the Blood Ghost True Demon's blood poison in the dust and air within a mile. A slave did not forget to remind him, "Master, these 4 people's cultivation has reached the peak of the spirit immortal realm. They're only 1 step away from the cave immortal realm. They're still very strong. I'm just afraid that they are strong. So what if they are strong? With the blood ghost's blood poison, even cave immortals will be in trouble. With the poison restraining them, there's nothing to be afraid of." He released his consciousness to each of them. After about half a day, the 4 carefully searched inch by inch. After passing through the ruins, they finally approached the central area. They were really careful. The 4 of them released a hand seal and their sensory abilities, forming a sensory domain that began to permeate. They also kept getting closer. However, these people's sensory abilities could only be used in the air. They could not permeate the ruins and rocks because they did not have such abilities. All right, let's do it. After the four of them entered, Su Fong immediately formed a hand seal. The others also formed a hand seal. Whoosh! In the air above the ruins where the four of them were, a large amount of blood-colored dust suddenly exploded. It was the aura formed by the blood poison and the ruins after the seal was undone. It's its poison. The four experts who were engulfed in it did not expect that there would be such an explosion of power in the material void. It was neither a Dharma treasure nor an immortal's attack. It was an unguarded shattering of material particles. It came too suddenly, and the four of them's skin began to rot. As they screamed, they frantically fled in the direction they came from on their swords. Pa! 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 More than a dozen Tao artifacts were swept over by a huge storm and attacked the four of them. The surrounding experts also activated various divine abilities and leaped up from the ruins. Oomph! You still want to kill my little brother? With your mediocre skills. A white figure suddenly caught up to the side of the four people who were covered in the blood poison. Bai Ling. She had the appearance of a young girl. After laughing coldly, she flicked her finger. A ring in her hand passed through the Tao artifacts and suddenly attacked the four poisoned experts. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. This sentence was reasonable. Even if the four of them were poisoned, they could still circulate their qi and activate their Dharma treasures. Trapped in the blood poison, the four of them could only grab their Tao artifacts. Unfortunately, so what if they were Tao artifacts? They were just ordinary Tao artifacts. Just as they activated their Dharma treasures to fight against the Tao artifacts of the experts, a mixed-colored ring suddenly expanded to a size of one jaw. It felt like a black circle that was strangely expanding in the air. Boom! Boom! The circle touched the Dharma treasures that were protecting the four experts. It almost swept away all of them. When it hit a flying sword, the flying sword would shatter. The four Tao artifacts were not a match for the mixed-colored ring in an instant. They shattered and turned into a large number of particles. The chaos ring is so terrifying. Before the surrounding experts could make a move, everyone heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this scene. Green Feather King and the Undying Tortoise floated beside Su Fong. They were shocked by the chaos ring that Bai Ling released. Green Feather King sighed repeatedly. I used to think that Heavenly Lord Soul Sword was a very powerful Tao artifact. Now that I have become an immortal, I can use part of its power. Compared to the Chaos Ring, Heavenly Lord Soul Sword is worlds apart. The four of them have been killed by the Chaos Ring. He used the Fire Cloud Steps, a divine ability that came from the illusory Fire Cloud. At this time, many substances were burning. They came to the center and were still swept up by the treasure fragments. For corpses with missing arms and legs moved with the flow of the air. A moment ago, they were having a beautiful dream, but now they were corpses. Everyone was sucked into the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. Su Fong also put the corpses inside. Then, she continued to fly on her sword and rushed to the illusory snow ground. During this time, she began to strip the young immortals and used the illusory fire cloud to purify the corpses. Almost every big goblin could enjoy the life essence brought by the immortal corpses. The rest of the journey was very smooth. They encountered some nebulas and cold currents, but there was no danger. After almost 3 years, they finally saw the familiar illusory snow ground. As soon as they stepped into the snow ground, under the white snow, 2 immortals flashed from the snowfield. With such speed, they were definitely not spirit immortals, but cave immortals. Although cave immortals were not considered true experts in the great world, compared to all living beings in the great world, cave immortals were like giants. The 2 cave immortals looked at Su Fong fiercely. "Why are you here?" "I am a disciple of Huang Fu Dojo. I am here to carry out a mission. This is a rune talisman." Seeing the 2 of them being so overbearing, Su Fong was used to it. They knew that he was a disciple of Star Palace, but they still deliberately oppressed him. There were too many people like this in the small world and the great world. Fly straight for 100 miles. There will be a senior from the same sect overseeing it. After the 2 of them checked, they let Su Fong pass. I don't know if it is revenge for the big goblin that escaped or something else. Recently, there have been many disciples disappearing mysteriously. No one knows if they are alive or dead. We have to investigate them strictly. Seeing Su Fong disappear, the two cave immortals turned to look at the border of the snow ground and the void. After forming a seal, they disappeared again in the snowy sky. Disciples of the same sect are disappearing mysteriously. Every word they said was heard by Su Fong. P.S. There was a problem in the first few chapters. There should be 17 Yang Meridians. Everyone saw Yang Meridians in these few chapters. Sometimes when I am too busy, it is easy to make such low-level mistakes. It is my fault. Chapter 924. He didn't seem to have heard anything before coming here. He thought about the conversation between the two people. After about 2 hours, he passed through a large amount of snow and storms. He seemed to be lost in a world of ice and snow. The last time he passed by the illusory snow ground, he didn't know how terrifying it was. Now, he had a deep understanding. It turned out that the snow ground would form large amounts of ice in all directions. It was the same as when he passed by this place in the past. However, now that he was an immortal, he could see more ice formations in the sky. These ice formations were too terrifying. He had no choice but to use his fire cloud wings and the domineering power of the illusory fire cloud to resist the cold. In the end, he couldn't hold on for long. He could only return to the ground and fly at a low altitude. At this moment, he felt like he had lost his sense of direction. Large amounts of ice had formed around him. More importantly, this world was filled with ice of all sizes. Fortunately, with Su Fong's ability, he could sense that there was some special power of the constellation of 9 heavens in the cold. When he went deeper, the token also moved slightly. Soon after, in the vast world of snow, it released a few strong, true cheese and life auras. It was a disciple of the constellation of 9 heavens. When he rushed over, there were a few people waiting for him. The snow ground in the depths had already collapsed. The area of the valley had suddenly increased by several times. It felt like a snow pit. Huangfu Training Hall disciple, Huangfu Shaoying. A few disciples were at the cliff of the pit, checking the token and verifying it. One of them was a cave immortal whose cultivation level Su Fong couldn't sense. He handed the token to Su Fong. Huangfu Shaoying, your cultivation level is ordinary. If that's the case, you can go to the depths of the space. For the next half a year, you will be like the other disciples and clean up the buried training spaces. The illusory snow ground will still be a training ground for our sect's disciples in the future. Go. Thank you, senior brother. The latter accepted the order and slowly disappeared. At this moment, he heard the core disciple sneer. Huangfu Shaoying has always been at odds with our training hall. That's why senior brother sent this virtual immortal disciple to clean up the collapsed areas. Wouldn't he most likely be crushed to death? Otherwise, he would freeze to death. Half a year. How could a virtual immortal survive in such a cold place? Senior brother's methods are truly ruthless, killing people without spilling blood. He didn't let him carry out those seemingly dangerous missions, but in the end, the depths were even more dangerous. He's just an ordinary disciple. It doesn't matter if he lives or dies. I just feel uncomfortable when I see the disciples of Huangfu Training Hall. If we want to deal with them, we have to deal with those core disciples. His voice gradually faded away and disappeared behind him. What replaced it was the occasional sound of collapsing or the sound of wind tearing through the air like a whirlpool. The 9 great dojos of the constellation of 9 heavens are indeed not harmonious. Baby Snoring, Young Master Tianyun, and Young Master Crouching Immortal are constantly fighting with one another. You want me to die here? What good plan? But I've cultivated the ethereal quintessence, have a world fragment, and have pure yang energy. Just this bit of cold air is enough to kill me. He could feel the baleful aura of the constellation of 9 heavens everywhere. Su Fong had already arrived at a very deep abyss. He saw that there were still quite a few ice fragments piled up in the center. There were also some rocks mixed in. Around him, over 100 disciples would occasionally activate their magic treasures to clear out the rubble from the depths of the abyss. They would pile up in the center, and other disciples would use their storage rings to absorb the rubble and bring it out of the abyss. Half a year staying in this extremely cold place for half a year wasn't easy at all. There were also disciples in charge of the area. After Su Fong landed, he was led deeper into the ice layer by someone. He saw that there were disciples at the cave Immortal Realm and above who were currently forming formations. 100 meters down, Su Fong entered an ice cave that was mostly buried. There was still some blood chi in it. Over 20 disciples were activating their storage rings to absorb rocks and ice from the outside. He could see that there were some corpses buried under the rubble. Su Fong was too ordinary. No one spoke to him. He did what everyone was doing. He took out a storage ring and began to slowly absorb a huge rock into it. Virtual immortals were also immortals. However, it was very difficult for them to activate their storage rings to absorb substances in such an extremely cold environment. A huge rock would consume a lot of immortal power and essence spirit. It was also very heavy on the physical body. The surrounding disciples were all several times, or even 10 times stronger than Su Fong in terms of cultivation level. However, their speed was also very slow. No wonder there were so many immortals. The illusory snow ground had yet to be cleared out. It was naturally not easy for them to clear the rubble and resist the cold. As everyone busied themselves for a few days and rested for a period of time, the disciples were able to persevere through this process. The disciples who were carrying out missions here were mostly spirit immortals. Some of them were virtual immortals. The cave immortal disciples had to carry out more difficult missions. Gradually, 2 months passed. Not only did Su Fong adapt, but he also gradually got to know the surrounding disciples. A few of them were also from Huangfu training halls. In particular, they all had one thing in common. Most of the disciples here had no background or family clans. For example, a few disciples from Huangfu training halls were considered disciples with different surnames. Their status was even lower than Su Fong's. However, disciples with different surnames were not truly without status. Not all of the 9 training halls in the constellation of 9 heavens were controlled by family clans. For example, Huangfu training halls were controlled by Huangfu family clans. However, most of them were disciples with different surnames. These disciples with different surnames had heard that Su Fong had been given his name by the Huangfu family and did not have Huangfu bloodline. Therefore, they were especially talkative. They let Su Fong know that there were many powerful experts with different surnames in Huangfu training halls. They could even openly fight against the Huangfu family clans. After chatting with these people from time to time, Su Fong realized that he did not know much about Huangfu training halls. He did not expect a training hall to be so complicated. Buzz. Half a year would be up in just a little bit more time. At this moment, the tokens at the waists of the disciples who were moving the rubble and patrolling the surroundings all buzzed and shone brightly. What's going on? Many people were shocked. They activated their tokens. In an instant, a voice that shocked the essence soul came from inside. All disciples, listen up. The big goblin that escaped this place in the past is ambushing outside. All of you, leave the abyss and come to support. The experts in charge of patrolling looked at the crowd and trembled. Did you hear the higher-ups' orders? Go. Swish. Swish. No one hesitated. This was an order from the higher-ups. If anyone did not carry it out, according to the sect, they would be killed on the spot by the higher-ups. No one dared to delay. Everyone left the ice cave at the fastest speed possible. After half an hour, nearly 1,000 disciples appeared in the sky above the canyon. They swarmed out of the canyon and arrived in the sky above the snowy plains. There were more than 100 experts around them. They were all cave immortals and above. Many of them were even cave immortals. Immediately, everyone split up. Many cave immortals led more than 100 disciples who were carrying out missions and flew towards the snowstorm. Every disciple knew how powerful the big goblin was. They all took out their Dharma treasures and were ready to attack at any moment. However, they still did not know where the big goblin was. They only knew that many disciples were calling for help. They had to find the big goblin in the snowy plains. Those big goblins are too daring. They should have run far away after escaping. There are no top experts here. If they meet someone as powerful as Hen Buhue, unless it's a big goblin like Dai Yi, the other sealed big goblins are no match for her. They don't know what's good for them. Su Fong analyzed in his heart. He did not think that this was a big threat. Under such circumstances, those big goblins could not do anything. If they could be suppressed by the constellation of 9 heavens once, they could be suppressed a second time. The big goblin had been suppressed for many years and was trapped in the snowy plains. It was constantly bullied by the disciples. The purpose of this training was to let the big goblin get beaten up for nothing. The big goblin naturally wanted to take revenge. After chasing for half a day, the snowstorm was too powerful. Not only was the wind strong, but it also swept up ice and gravel from time to time. The disciples had to constantly activate their Dharma treasures. Su Fong could not take it. He was the only 4-Dao virtual immortal here. No matter how weak the other disciples were, they were still at the peak of the virtual immortal realm. Most of them were spirit immortals and cave immortals. Gaga, high up in the sky, above the snowstorm, about 10,000 feet high in the cold and desolate sky. A huge bear with white fur kept spitting out cold air. The cold air merged with the snowstorm below, causing the snowstorm to be even more powerful and the wind to be even more shocking. These Star Palace disciples have entered the 2 mountain ridges. The huge bear even spoke. It instantly formed a seal and turned into a handsome young man in white. Indeed, hundreds of disciples were following the cave immortals and other powerful experts into the 2 frozen mountains. At this moment, the snowstorm was even more violent. It kept coming, and many disciples could not advance. Good timing. Who would have thought that 2 great demons would appear on the 2 snowy peaks and cliffs? They were 2 identical snow eagles. The one on the left suddenly spat out a demonic wind and merged with the snowstorm. The one on the right spat out a bracelet and merged with the snowstorm. Tut, tut, tut. Hundreds of disciples were in the middle of the snowstorm. At this moment, some disciples could no longer control their vital energy to deal with the snowstorm. They lost their balance and were sucked into the snowstorm. Then, the disciples below the cave immortal realm were sucked into the center of the snowstorm. Even Su Fong was no exception. The remaining cave immortals could not withstand it either. One after another, they were sucked into the snowstorm. Something is wrong. Heaven and earth were turned upside down. His body was suppressed by a large amount of cold air and started to freeze. Su Fong thought that it was just the natural power of the snowstorm. But he did not expect that when he entered the depths of the snowstorm, it was a large amount of big goblin energy. Just as he realized something, he was sucked into the darkness by a force that he could not resist. Dong! Patter! Su Fong, who was weightless, suddenly landed on his shoulder. His body was about to break. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He quickly looked around and realized that there was no snowstorm around him. It was actually a magical treasure space. The surroundings were cold and silent. Some of the Star Palace disciples were either smashed to death or severely injured. They were suppressed by a large amount of demonic aura and could not move. Under the demonic aura, there was a strong demonic aura seal. I understand now. We were ambushed by the big goblin. These big goblins are really bold. They came to the constellation of 9 heavens territory and ambushed the disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens. When he came back to his senses, the shock in his eyes faded. He immediately took an immortal pill and let his body recover first. At this moment, he heard a series of swooshing sounds. Then there was a crash. A few more disciples, all cave immortals, were sucked into the magical treasure. When Su Fong recovered a little, more than a dozen cave immortals were also sucked into the magical treasure. When he looked again, there were actually 70 to 80 of them. Almost all of them were wiped out. Only a small portion of them managed to escape. They were all lucky, or those who had the ability and means to do so. As for the immortals in the magical treasure space, they were all deeply uneasy. The magical treasure and the demonic array were shackled at the same time. No immortal could do anything. Chapter 925. Half a day later. Finally, one of the grotto immortal disciples recovered and weakly called out, "Junior apprentice brothers, we've only temporarily fallen for the big goblin's trap. The sex experts will come to save us. Of course, we'll have to work together and use our magic treasures to attack this Tao item and break it to escape." "Yes, senior apprentice brother. We'll follow your orders." The dozens of disciples, even the grotto immortals, followed his lead. He was a handsome youth around 24 or 25 years old. He had such an appearance, was so young, and was an extremely powerful grotto immortal. He had to be one of the countless disciples from the constellation of 9 heavens. He had to be someone with potential and talent. Under this person's command, everyone endured their injuries with difficulty and approached the center one after another. This person had become their only hope of leaving this place. How long would they have to wait for the sex experts to save them? The sex experts would definitely come to save them. But if the big goblin hid their magic treasures somewhere or threw them into an abyss, then they would forever be shackled by their magic treasures. Therefore, the only way to survive was to shatter the magical treasures and carve out a path of survival on his own. Luck. The man looked at everyone and silently had them use the 9 heavenly stars minor image art. Although they were shackled by the formation and couldn't use their true chi, the 9 heavenly stars minor image art focused on cultivating world energy. It was an extraordinary power that could surpass most true chi. "The 6 of you come over here." Everyone gathered their energy and formed hand seals. The man then looked at the 6 grotto immortals. The 6 of them followed him to the center. The man shouted, "I just so happened to learn the 7-star killing sword formation. Although it's just the tip of the iceberg, its power is boundless." Good. The 7-star killing sword formation is one of our sect's greatest divine abilities. The 6 grotto immortals immediately became spirited. The others had more or less heard of the 7-star killing sword formation. Only Su Fong didn't know anything about it. Buzz. About half an incense stick's worth of time later, everyone poured their true chi into the starlight sword chi released by the 7 grotto immortals. Gradually, a starlight barrier formed around the 7 of them. The man opened his mouth slightly, and a flying sword the size of sesame seed appeared in his mouth. It released a terrifying aura. "I'll use all of the formation's power to activate the Tao item and break it. A group of humans, I almost overlooked you. You think you can escape with such petty tricks?" Soon, the 7 grotto immortals and dozens of cultivators were about to activate the flying sword in the man's mouth. However, a sinister shout suddenly came from above the Tao artifact space. Rustle, rustle next. A large amount of demonic poison poured down from the space above them. It's over. The young immortal from the cave immortal's previous confidence and vigor collapsed as he saw the demonic chi pouring in. Chi under the control of the Tao artifact and the demonic array. The demonic poison splashed onto the crowd like bloody water. In an instant, there was a wave of corrosive steam. Every disciple of Star Palace, regardless of whether they were cave immortals, spirit immortals, or virtual immortals, was pressed into the demonic poison. Their jinchi shattered, their defenses disappeared, and their skin and flesh were corroded by the demonic poison. Every single disciple was screaming and struggling in pain. "Haha, a cooked duck can't fly away. My demonic poison is unparalleled in the world. You ordinary disciples are just cannon fodder for the constellation of 9 heavens. Don't worry, I won't kill you easily. Enjoy." In the depths of the Dharma treasure, the big goblin's smug laughter sounded again. "Help, help!" 70 to 80 people were lying in the demonic poison. The virtual immortals and spirit immortals couldn't bear the pain anymore. They begged each other for help or looked at the cave immortal experts. Cave immortals? So what? Cave immortals were just experts in the great world. Most of the ordinary immortals in the great world were just ordinary immortals. As for the big goblin, its strength was probably above the cave immortal level. Therefore, the cave immortals could only be corroded by the demonic poison and couldn't circulate their jinchi. What a shocking demonic poison! Among them, at the edge, Su Fong had also fallen into the demonic poison. His skin was also corroded, but it was corroding slower than the others. However, if this continued for a long time, he wouldn't be able to resist the demonic poison. This was expected. If the big goblin hadn't made any preparations and sucked so many people into the Dharma treasure, wouldn't there be anyone who activated their methods to break the Dharma treasure? The demonic poison was a method that the big goblin had prepared long ago. In this prison-like Dharma treasure space, the demonic poison was a fatal force to the disciples of the Star Palace. Su Fong could temporarily deal with the demonic poison because his skin and vital energy had already started to activate the demonic aura. However, he could only slightly resist the demonic poison. The fastest way to deal with the demonic poison, other than using demonic aura and pure yang energy, was to use the Blood Ghost True Demon. In an instant, he activated the True Demon Blood Plate. The Blood Ghost True Demon released a terrifying blood poison through Su Fong's meridians and spread to his skin, suppressing the demonic poison on the outer layer of his skin and absorbing it bit by bit. In this way, the demonic poison wasn't targeting Su Fong, but the Blood Ghost True Demon. Buzz! Not long after, a suction force and a blinding light suddenly appeared above the crowd. Oh no! Su Fong couldn't help but blink. He felt his body become weightless again. When he opened his eyes in the next second, he saw that the disciples had left the storage ring and were falling into a big goblin array. Some demonic seal patterns were like chains. Before they landed on the ground, they wrapped around their bodies. In just a few breaths, Su Fong and the disciples were bound by the seals. Then, they fell to the ground with loud thuds. They hurriedly sat up and saw even more disciples from the constellation of 9 heavens. There were actually more than 300 people. Almost all of them were spirit immortals. There were only a few virtual immortals and cave immortals. Everyone looked at each other. They were all shocked and in despair. When they looked outside the demonic array, they saw that it was actually a cave. In the huge cave, on some rocks, there were cultivators who were either standing or sitting. They were releasing demonic aura. They weren't cultivators. They were peerless big goblin that had shed its shell and taken human form in the great world. Even with the demonic array's shackles, everyone could smell the stench of blood and some foul smells floating in the cave. The big goblin's nest. It's over. This time, it's really over. Looking at these big goblins, the weakest one was at the cave immortal realm. Most of the big goblins were very powerful. A mournful scream suddenly made everyone shudder. Everyone looked in one direction. Outside the formation, on a rock that looked like an altar, there was a flirtatious lady in red. She had actually pried open the head of a disciple of Star Palace. She had pried open his skull piece by piece. She aimed at the squirming brain and sucked it in. Then, the disciple's body emerged from the skull. His heart, spleen, lungs, and intestines were all sucked into the woman in red stomach. In less than an hour, only the skin was left. Haha, eating them is too easy. These Star Palace disciples have been treating us like animals in the snow all year round. Suddenly, a very muscular man walked over. He was more than 2 meters tall. His chin was very sharp, and his eyes were small. He didn't look like an ordinary human. He suddenly grabbed the air. Countless burning whips formed by demonic aura flew into the demonic array as he sneered. Don't be too heavy-handed. The king has ordered that it's best to use these people for cultivation. It's a pity to kill them. The constellation of 9 heavens has been too much to the demon clan. If we kill them, it'll be too easy for them. We have to let the constellation of 9 heavens know that the demon clan is not to be trifled with. The big goblin in the surroundings made this expert stop before he went too far. But just as he finished speaking, flaming whips whipped the bodies of the hundreds of disciples. Even Su Fong wasn't spared. They were like ants on a hot pan, struggling. After being tortured for a while, the big goblin lost interest and left. Then, a few more people were captured. In front of everyone, they were either eaten alive or smashed into meat paste and absorbed into the big goblin's body. If this continued, the hundreds of disciples wouldn't live for more than a few years before they were eaten. While waiting, Su Fonda roughly knew how many big goblins there were. He estimated that there were close to 50 big goblins. More importantly, many of them didn't seem to have escaped from the illusory snowland. Only a portion of them came from the snowland. This allowed Su Fong to at least be sure of one thing. This wasn't the illusory snowland. There was no cold air, only the cold and lonely power of the void. About half a month later, a few more people were killed by the big goblin in front of everyone. It was also at this moment that the cave immortal disciples among the hundreds of disciples began to secretly prepare to attack the demonic array. They transmitted their voices to every disciple. Once the demonic array was broken, everyone was to escape and seek help from the sect once they escaped from the cave. After a full 3 days, every disciple in the demonic array sat cross-legged. Whoosh! At the center, a rune talisman suddenly shattered the power of the seal. It rose up and struck the demon formation with lightning speed. That's not a Tao artifact. It's a rune condensed by a certain expert from the Stellar Palace. When Su Fong saw it, he was shocked. It seemed that among these disciples, there were some extraordinary experts from the constellation of 9 heavens who had obtained such a rune. It could be used to save their lives at this juncture. Boom! The demonic array immediately exploded, collapsing and shattering. Whoosh! Whoosh! As the demonic array disappeared, there were no longer any shackles. Although the hundreds of disciples were still trapped by the seal, they could still release some of their true chi and escape. Poof! Poof! The big goblins were also awakened. They suddenly jumped from the surroundings. With a wave of their hands or a breath of demonic aura, they could kill a few people. Swish! Su Fong used the power of more than 10 slaves and his destiny treasure. He went into the crowd and shattered the seal on him. Then he stepped into a cave. A few cave immortal disciples had already escaped into it. He released the starry daylight sword and hurriedly escaped. As for most of the disciples, it was up to luck if they could escape. Not every spirit immortal or virtual immortal could break the seal on them. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Deep in the cave, demonic aura was everywhere. The cold wind blew and tore the aura field apart. Even the cave immortals were shackled. But as a whole, they were countless times stronger than Su Fong. Gradually, Su Fong was left behind. They were all running for their lives. No one could help Su Fong. Similarly, he could not help the others. Boom! Just as he could not see the cave immortals in front of him, it seemed that the experts had triggered the array. In an instant, an indescribable explosion of demonic flames surged from the front. Whoosh! Before Su Fong could react, he was engulfed by the flames. Poof! He rolled in the flames. A large number of rocks smashed onto him, and he kept spitting out blood. He was worried that he would be buried. Suddenly, the cave immortals who were struggling were also swept over. They controlled their artifacts to deal with a large, sharp claw. Amidst the flames, their artifacts clashed with the claw, creating loud, clanging noises. The cave immortals fought against the claw and blocked part of the flames for Su Fong. He staggered and stood up. It is indeed not easy to escape from the big goblin's nest. No matter how extraordinary these disciples are, the big goblin was already lying in ambush deep in the cave and fell into the trap. He wiped away the blood. The cave immortals saw him and were very surprised. Under the attack of the big goblin, a virtual immortal could still survive. Interesting. Very interesting. I heard that the disciples of the constellation of 9 heavens are all powerful. Not bad. To think that you can survive until now. The cold laughter of a coquettish woman suddenly came from the surroundings. Chapter 926. It's the big goblin again. Su Fong and the cave immortals heard the woman's voice. Although it was a woman, they did not know why their hearts were pounding. I'm not playing with you anymore. Just as Su Fong was about to activate his life divine power and use his earth elemental power to destroy everything around him and hide in the ruins. The woman smiled coldly and flirtatiously. In the next second, Su Fong stared at the claw formed by the demonic aura in front of him. It was fighting with the cave immortal's magic treasures. Suddenly, a chicken claw that looked like a chicken claw, which was not a supernatural power, grew to a size of 100 feet. With the momentum of a wave, it suddenly covered the space where they were. Whoosh! The demonic fire and all kinds of destructive power were all scattered as the big chicken claw grabbed at the void. Su Fong and the cave immortals lost all senses, as if they were trapped in magic treasures again. This feeling was very similar to when he met the Baihua deity lord and suddenly met the mysterious woman. It was difficult for the woman to suddenly let him enter the so-called precept domain world. However, the divine power that came from the chicken claw above also had the terrifying ability to shackle space, similar to the precept domain. Everything around them dispersed, and a few of them were suspended in the air alone. Above them was a colorful claw. In the depths of the cave, there was a colorful big bird with yellow feathers. It was not as big as Green Feather King, but it was many times bigger than Bai Ling. It was like a yellow oriole. Demonic aura shot out from the big bird and immediately turned into a graceful woman. The big claw of the Void Master and the others disappeared, but it was an invisible claw that shackled the few of them in the void. This was the peerless power of this female demon. So strong, she could deal with a few cave immortals alone and suppress the disciples of Star Palace so easily. This was definitely an extraordinary big goblin. Be obedient, come here. The big goblin that transformed into the yellow-dressed woman suddenly rolled up its palm. Su Fong and the few cave immortals were caught in a distorted state without any ability to struggle. They were suspended in front of the yellow-dressed woman in an instant. The woman in the yellow dress wore heavy makeup and was not gorgeous. She did not have the ruthlessness of the big goblin in her eyes. Instead, she treated them as delicacies. When Su Fong saw the woman, he wasn't afraid. He was just wary. He had seen many big goblin. Wasn't she just a demon? Don't think that he wouldn't recognize her just because she wore human skin and changed her identity. If you really want to kill me, then I can only fight it out with you. Lady Yellow Moon, His Majesty is here. Even as Su Fong and the other cavern immortals were wondering what the yellow-robed woman was going to do, several demon clouds suddenly appeared from the depths of the cave. These demonic clouds were too terrifying. Before they even arrived, the entire area was filled with sinister demonic chi. The yellow-robed woman shackled them, turned around, and nodded at the figures that appeared on the demonic cloud. She smiled and bowed. Huang Yu greets the king. Huang Yu, you were careless this time. Another woman's voice rang out from the cloud. So familiar. Su Fong's attention was attracted by the voice. Lady Yellow Moon hurriedly explained, I felt that most of them were spiritual immortals and cavern immortals. There weren't any experts, so I didn't personally guard these humans. My Majesty, Huang Yu was wrong. Yes, you were wrong. What should I do if I was wrong? The voice asked again. Plop. Lady Yellow Moon actually knelt down, raised her hand, and slapped herself. Her beautiful face was left with finger marks. It's her. The demonic cloud drifted over. Su Fong raised his head and saw a woman behind the figures. Only then did he feel afraid. His face involuntarily broke out in a layer of sweat. This was because the woman in a white velvet cloak was actually Dai Yi, who he had personally released. Lady Yellow Moon bowed to Dai Yi again, My Majesty. Dai Yi looked down without a trace of demonic chi. All right, if you are this careless again, I will take your life. I won't dare to do it again. Go and capture the other disciples of Star Palace. After you capture them, immediately retreat to the next secret cave. The experts of Star Palace will be here soon. How are they so fast? They have been searching for this king's whereabouts. Moreover, they're all true experts. If you encounter them, you won't be their match. Dai Yi looked at the big goblin beside her. Go and help. Retreat from this place and wait for me in the secret cave. Yes. The few of them immediately met up with Lady Yellow Moon. Dai Yi stood on the demonic cloud. Her deep gaze landed on Su Fong. Leave that brat behind. My Majesty wants you. Do you still want to hide? Lady Yellow Moon grabbed and pulled Su Fong away from the group. Senior. Before he could stabilize himself, Su Fong chuckled and bowed to Dai Yi. Dai Yi did not restrain Su Fong. With her strength, it was too easy to kill Su Fong at such a distance. Su Fong did not even have time to activate the mixed Yuan sacred realm. She glanced at him coldly. Brat, Why are you everywhere? I have no choice. When I was out on a mission, I went to the illusory snow land and was caught here. This means that I have fate with you. Who gave you fate? Dai Yi's eyes emitted a demonic aura. As for Su Fong, he involuntarily turned his back to Dai Yi. After half an instance's time, Dai Yi made Su Fong face her again. Fortunately, you met Ao Tian Changhen. I met him. However, it was only Elder Ao Tian Changhen's primordial spirit. But I heard good news. Elder has regained his freedom and will not be punished. Is that so? Dai Yi was stunned. She flicked her fingers and sighed. I wasted 100,000 years with him. To the demon clan, a mere 100,000 years is nothing. Even some of the demons in the small world can live for more than 100,000 years. Senior, what else do you want? I am willing to run. It is my honor to run errands for you. Brat, you are very cunning. Do you want me to let you go? I just ascended to the large world and met you. I cannot die like this. Also, if the experts from the constellation of 9 heavens come and see me with you, I will not be able to explain myself. I will be killed as a disobedient disciple. Now is not the time to leave. However, you are right about one thing. If I let you go now, you might really be killed by the constellation of 9 heavens. Listen to this king. Go to this king's Dao domain and wait. Dao domain. Su Fong was so frightened that he wanted to say something, but his mind was blank. Then, a vortex appeared in front of him. In an instant, he was in a mysterious blood-colored space filled with demonic aura. This space was surrounded by a large number of Dao marks and life marks. They intertwined to form an incomparably sturdy barrier. Moreover, there were many Dao artifacts, spiritual items, and immortal stones floating in front of this space. Was this the legendary Dao domain? It was a space filled with secrets. When he thought back to his divine image, wasn't it just a powerful aura? Then he looked at his divine image domain. It was built on his aura, his physical body, and his divine ability, which allowed him to control space. However, this Dao domain seemed to be in eternal existence. Furthermore, he could sense what was outside. It was as if this was the true abyss of legends. Brat, I'll let you broaden your horizons. Take a look at the true experts of the constellation of 9 heavens. Suddenly, a thought appeared in front of him. It was Dai Yi. She formed a hand seal, and a window appeared in the demonic aura. Outside the window was Dai Yi's true body's eyes. Through the window, Dai Yi's true body should be in the boundless starry sky. A moment later, a nebula appeared. It was not a nebula in the void. Instead, it was a divine ability or aura released by an immortal. What kind of immortal can create something like a nebula? Through the window, Su Fong was able to see it with his own eyes. The pressure and shock he felt were real. Buzz! The nebula surged forward, and a figure suddenly condensed 10,000 meters in the void. Behind that figure were hundreds of experts. That figure gradually became clearer. In a flash, he appeared several hundred meters in the void, still releasing a bit of the nebula's aura. You're a disciple of the constellation of 9 heavens, but you don't even know what kind of cultivation technique this is? Dai Yi's Yuan spirit avatar looked at him like a monster. I only know the 7-star annihilation sword formation. The 7-star annihilation sword formation is an ordinary divine ability, but this is a true supreme divine ability. It's called the Extreme Dao Nebula Art. It's one of the strongest offensive divine abilities in the constellation of 9 heavens. The Extreme Dao Nebula Art. Shock. From the nebula released by that figure, Su Fong finally understood why the constellation of 9 heavens was such a major power. Just that nebula released by that cultivator was definitely enough to kill anything. He took a closer look. It was an extremely young man in starry robes. Although he was extremely handsome, he had long, fiery red hair. Senior, you killed my Star Palace's disciples. Please put down your butcher's knife. Junior will return. The red-robed man cupped his fists towards Dai Yi. Dai Yi shouted, Junior, your strength isn't bad. Tell me your name. Who is your master? The red-robed man was still polite. Junior is Qi Yanzi. My master is the Bodhi Spirit World's Yuling Tian. Yuling Tian fought with me 100,000 years ago. He is indeed a peerless expert. You're quite talented to be his disciple. Dai Yi was still calm. You're just a junior. Qi Yinzi, why do you want to fight with this king? Back then, even your master wasn't confident he could defeat me. Qi Yinzi said, I'm not here on my master's orders. I'm here on my sect's orders. I hope Senior will let my sect's disciples go. Otherwise, those monsters from Star Palace will take action. Hee hee. Go back and tell your master that Star Palace was in the wrong. If you know what's good for you, don't interfere with the matter between this king and Ao Tianchonghan. Otherwise, this king will still kill every Star Palace disciple he sees. Senior, this king doesn't need to talk nonsense with you. Suddenly, from the window that Su Fong saw, when Qi Yinzi bowed, Dai Yi's anger suddenly turned into billowing waves of demonic aura that swept towards the hundreds of disciples. Qi Yinzi was the first to be hit by the waves of demonic aura. His entire body burned with a shocking flame. His long red hair seemed to be on fire. Su Fong looked at the scene in shock. Qi Yinzi is so strong. He's a junior and also from Bodhi Spirit World. He's probably stronger than Wang Yuzhen. The waves of demonic aura swept through everything. Qi Yinzi's entire body was covered with a bloody mist. As for the hundreds of experts behind him, they were swept tens of thousands of meters away. Oomph, Dai Yi sneered. Suddenly, a void appeared in the window. Then, everything disappeared. Su Fong couldn't see the window. He could only see the demonic aura barrier. He calmed down. Being in the demonic aura domain, he couldn't calm down. Dai Yi is strong. After all, she's a big goblin that has lived for more than 100,000 years. Qi Yinzi could actually block her attack. He must be a genius disciple from Bodhi Spirit World. Chapter 927. Trapped in Dai Yi's Dao domain, Su Fong didn't have any thoughts of escaping. Dai Yi was too powerful. Her casual move had exploded in the void, far surpassing the cave immortal realm. He simply sat down. It seemed that Dai Yi wasn't trying to kill him, but whether or not it would be difficult was hard to say. While waiting, he was bored, so he chatted with Luo Che through the blood jade. When they talked about what had happened, Luo Che smiled. This Dao domain is indeed something you can't break. In a great world, this monster is considered an expert. Can you tell what kind of monster that Dai Yi is? Su Fong couldn't help but be curious. You'll know soon enough. Didn't you shackle the Pig Horse King and the Peng Race's Monster Rock? If these two monsters grow up, they'll be extraordinary. In ancient times, the Pig Horse Kingdom was the strongest monster race, and the Peng Race was the king race. They'll have to wait until I'm strong. So your current goal is to catch up to Qi Yinzi. What? Is Qi Yinzi worthy of your attention? In the vast immortal dome, Qi Yinzi is neither too rare nor too common. I paid attention to him because he has the aura of a tribulation taker. This aura can be found in your body or in my nascent spirit. Qi Yinzi is also a tribulation taker. That can't be. He has cultivated for tens of thousands of years, while the upheaval happened less than 1,000 years ago. Have you forgotten? Just like you and me, he obtained the power of a tribulation taker during the upheaval. I don't know why, but it seems that tribulation takers also have the aura of fate. You should befriend Qi Yinzi. It'll definitely be beneficial to you in the future. Then I can only wait. Best to wait. You don't know what's going on outside. Just wait. I don't think this little monster will kill you. She's still a little monster. She's clearly an old monster. In my eyes, even the constellation of 9 heavens is a junior. Fine. They chatted like this. Before they knew it, several days had passed. Suddenly, the demonic Qi Dao domain disappeared. Su Fong sensed the change and immediately stood up. He saw Big Goblin in front of him and around him. At first glance, he thought that it was a reflection and that his eyes were playing tricks on him. However, after his precept domain completely disappeared, he found himself in a cave deep underground. There were dozens of Big Goblin. More than half of them were in their true forms, while a portion of them had transformed into their human forms and were sitting cross-legged around him. This was clearly the Big Goblin's lair. What are you still looking at? Quickly pay your respects to the king. At this moment, Lady Yellow Moon, who'd shackled Su Fong, suddenly shouted coquettishly. He turned around abruptly and saw Dai Yi sitting on the throne in front of him. Around her were several cultivators in human form who didn't have much Yao Qi. As for Empress Yellow Moon, who was shackling him, she didn't seem to be the strongest existence here. The cultivators next to Dai Yi were all men. Most of them were around 30 years old, and they all had one thing in common. They were all handsome and dignified. Sensing carefully, only a small portion of the big goblin here contained the vital energy of the constellation of 9 heavens. Obviously, the other big goblin here didn't escape from the illusory snowland. Empress Yellow Moon suddenly bowed to Dai Yi. King, we have too few people now. If we really want to expand our influence, we need to strengthen ourselves. Just now, this king and everyone have decided to attack the Black Fiend Cliff. There are quite a number of big goblin with decent abilities there. Black Fiend Cliff. Su Fong was stunned. He had an impression of this place. It was very far away from the constellation of 9 heavens. It was a continent in the void near the Yuan Lu Great World. The reason why he had heard of it was because the Black Fiend Cliff was a demon clan influence. It was said that it was controlled by an extremely valiant big goblin. There were also many big goblins under his command. Although the constellation of 9 heavens was powerful, they didn't provoke such a demon clan influence. However, the Star Palace wanted to consolidate their position as the overlord of a region. Hence, they more or less had plans to deal with these influences. With the king around, we will definitely be able to take down the Black Fiend Cliff. A big goblin in the surroundings bowed to Dai Yi. That's right. Our king has been suppressed for 100,000 years. 100,000 years ago, he had already caused the constellation of 9 heavens to be helpless. As for the Black Fiend Cliff, it could only hide from the constellation of 9 heavens. Take down the Black Fiend Cliff. Seize all their resources and treasures. Even the few powerful big goblins beside Dai Yi couldn't wait to kill. Dai Yi looked at Empress Yellow Moon. Take out some Star Palace disciples for everyone to cultivate. Empress Yellow Moon was very fast. She flashed past and left behind a Star Palace disciple for each of the big goblins. Seeing that the disciples were waiting for death and were about to be refined and devoured by the big goblin, Su Fong felt a little sympathetic. At that moment, Luo suddenly said, "Don't be shaken. I am a human. I saw my own kind being killed." However, Su Fong refuted Luo this time. It's not a problem of being a human. Luo's expression suddenly turned cold. He was very serious. If you want to save people, you have to weigh your own weight. Ask yourself honestly, do you have the ability to do so? Su Fong didn't know how to respond to such a blatant question. No, he could only face the question head-on. If you don't, then you are wasting your energy and shaking your Tao heart by thinking of saving people. What you have seen is the law of heaven and earth, the law of nature. Survival of the fittest. When a human sees an ant, won't he still trample it to death? Would anyone pity an ant? If an immortal cultivator doesn't hold on his stubbornness, how can he walk to the end? Since ancient times, those who can become a truly powerful immortal emperor are those with strong Tao hearts. After hearing that, Su Fong really wanted to ask himself. He looked at Luo, who was in the Crimson Prison. Then should I have a heart of stone? Luo immediately replied, "That's not necessary. It depends on the situation and the time. If you have the ability, of course you will help. If you don't have the ability, not only will you not be able to save people, you will also lose your own life." I remember once, a large number of humans were captured by the demon clan. A group of righteous cultivators saw that and chased after them to save them. He asked again, later on, were they killed by the demon clan instead of saving them? It's about what you think. Not many were killed, but most of them were suppressed by the demon clan and became slaves. Do you understand now? Yes, I still walk my own path. However, I have to do my best. I can't ignore the severity of the situation and create trouble for myself. Finally, Su Fong suddenly calmed down. He felt that the aura in his body had returned to its previous smooth state. At that moment, he heard that many Star Palace disciples were torn apart alive. Some were still begging and looking at him helplessly for help. However, this was the naked law of nature. The weak were food. They were at the bottom of the food chain and would be eaten by the strong. Even though Luo had cleared his doubts at that very moment, he was still somewhat shocked. In a short while, there were no more survivors. There was only blood in the air. "Young man, you are not ordinary." Suddenly, Dai Yi, who was sitting on the throne, looked at Su Fong with an unfathomable smile. Su Fong felt uneasy. "Senior, my body is not good enough for you. Let me return to the Star Palace and pass on Elder Ao Tian's words. I can run errands for you." Dai Yi smiled. "Errands and whatnot. I still need you to make a trip. Let me ask you, did Ao Tian give you 3 Xian sword talismans?" Yes. He said that he wanted to take me in as his disciple. However, I did not fulfill my wish to become Elder Ao Tian's disciple. I said some strange things, and he gave me 3 Xian sword talismans. He wanted to thank you. He knew that you liked the 3 sealed Xian swords when you entered the snow land and came to this king's place of suppression. Hence, he helped you after the incident. Thank me. Of course he wants to thank you. Not only him, but I also want to thank you. Otherwise, wouldn't it be because of you that this king could escape from the illusory snowland? This made Su Fong frown. Then I don't understand. Dai Yi suddenly emitted an aura from her eyes. Su Fong appeared on the high platform from Tianzhong below, almost right in front of Dai Yi. He was also in front of the experts beside her. Dai Yi held her breath and asked, "You don't understand why an elder would help me? A big goblin suppressed by the Star Palace, right?" Senior's wise. Su Fong's heart was uneasy. After all, he was facing so many big goblins at such a close distance. Dai Yi's aura was somewhat aggressive. You don't need to know the reason. You only need to understand that this is what Ao Tian owes me. He will repay me, and he will never be able to repay me in this lifetime. I can see that Ao Tian not only wants to thank you, but also sees your potential. You are talented, really talented. Senior, I unintentionally let you out. Su Fong immediately explained. He did not really want to stay in this big goblin world. When you first entered the sealed land, I found it unbelievable. The moment you entered, Ao Tian, who was in the distant Star Palace, naturally saw you at first glance. I reckon he saw how you entered the sealed land and how you controlled the power of the sealed land, just like me. You must have something in your body or some kind of method that can quickly control the power of the world. Otherwise, an ordinary immortal like you would not be able to enter even if you had some Star Palace's vital energy. In the past 100,000 years, some Star Palace disciples have discovered the seal, and some have tried to enter or steal the power of the seal. However, no one has ever succeeded. Those disciples are hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of times stronger than their actual strength. Ao Tian is a peerless expert whose name shook the world 100,000 years ago. How could a seal be broken by those Star Palace disciples? Her analysis was so incisive that Su Fong was left speechless. Dai Yi straightened her graceful body. This king will not covet your secret. As I said before, I have to thank you. During this period of time, I will nurture you well. When you become strong, you will live well in the future. Be the witness between Ao Tian and me, and witness how things will end 100,000 years ago and 100,000 years later. Witness? He did not understand. He really did not understand what had happened between Dai Yi and Ao Tian. Nurture? The main point was this word. Suddenly, Su Fong felt that he was not unlucky, but lucky. It was hard to say what kind of luck he would have in the future. A big goblin brought Su Fong to a cave. The cave was sealed by a demonic formation. Although it was powerful, Su Fong still had some confidence in breaking the formation. However, after thinking about it, he gave up. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. However, he waited for half a year, and there was still no news. Helpless, he cultivated in the cave, hoping to break through the 4th Dao realm and step into the 5th Dao realm of the virtual immortal realm. It would be best if he could cultivate another Yang Meridian. Just as Su Fong was under Dai Yi's control and was in an unknown material world, in another world, someone was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Constellation of 9 heavens, Huangfu Main Peak. Chapter 928. In the main hall of the main peak, a group of people surrounded baby snoring. No matter how they tried to explain, it was useless. Young master, we really don't know if Huangfu Shaoying is dead or alive. The illusory snow ground was suddenly attacked by the big goblin, Dai Yi. Most of the disciples are either dead or missing. Currently, there is no news of Huangfu Shaoying. Don't worry, young master. The snow ground will collapse again. It will take a long time to clean it up. It will take at least 10 years. None of the immortals dared to offend baby snoring. They could only explain and persuade him. I'll wait here. Send people to find him. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. Baby snoring went to the main hall and sat down. The higher-ups were so scared that they quickly dispersed. No one could do anything to him. Not far away, within a formation, there was an empty space. The space was a main hall. At the entrance of the hall, Huangfu Duan and a few of his trusted subordinates saw the scene through the formation. Huangfu Duan stroked his beard. An immortal beside him said in a deep voice, "Master, this is great. Although the 4 disciples we sent did not kill Huangfu Shaoying, he met with an accident during the mission. However, we have not found his corpse yet, so we can't confirm the news." Huangfu Duan smiled deeply and said, "It's good that he's dead. You guys don't know how powerful the big goblin Dai Yi is. 100,000 years ago, it was about as powerful as the Elder. Back then, it killed many of our sect's experts. Since it attacked the snow ground, it will definitely kill anyone it sees. It treats Star Palace as its mortal enemy. That Huangfu Shaoying will definitely die. We also heard that even Qi Yinzi, the genius from Bodhi's spiritual world, was heavily injured by Dai Yi in one move. Qi Yinzi is just one of the best in your generation. Although he is talented, he has not cultivated for long. He still needs time to settle down. Of course, he is not Dai Yi's opponent. Since even Qi Yinzi can't do anything to the big goblin, Huangfu Shaoying is only a virtual immortal. He'll definitely die. If he's still alive, he'll definitely ask for help from the experts in the snowy lands." What a joke. The young master is really a clown. He only knows how to make a fuss when he's in trouble. First, he cries, then he throws a tantrum, and then he hangs himself. Sir, it's impossible for him to obtain the inheritance of the elders and control the dojo. He's just a useless young master. Of course he can't, but the surrounding immortals were all bragging beside Huangfu Duan. However, there seemed to be something different about the Huangfu. "Young miss." Through the formation, the disciples outside the main hall, who had been tortured by baby snort, were all dumbstruck as they stared at a white figure that was charging towards them. This white figure was like the one and only North Star. The thousands of high-level immortals inside and outside the main hall were like pieces of wood, serving as a foil. Especially the young elites. Their eyes were glazed as they stared blankly at the woman's figure. "What are you waiting for?" The woman instantly materialized. She stepped into the main hall and coldly shouted at Baby Snoring. Baby Snoring was so frightened that he stood up like a child who had done something wrong. "Elder sister, this is the dojo of the main peak. You're not allowed to cause trouble here. If Mother finds out, I don't think you'll be able to regain your freedom in 1,000 years. "Yes." Baby Snoring hurriedly walked towards the woman. Whoosh! The woman curled up and instantly disappeared with Baby Snoring, leaving behind only an afterimage. After 3 breaths, someone finally regained their senses. Baby Snoring, the one who can obtain the position of an elder, is not him. It's Huangfu Fei. At this moment, some high-level immortals walked out. One of them was Huangfu Yinhai. He also had trusted subordinates around him who would talk to him from time to time. As the afterimage disappeared, Huangfu Yunhai only had a cold, murderous look on his face. At the side peak, a passageway suddenly appeared in the clouds and landed in the courtyard behind the main hall. The spiritual light disappeared. It was Baby Snoring and the powerful lady. Baby Snoring had an aggrieved look on his face and explained, "Elder sister, I was wrong. But even if I was wrong, No one helped me find Huang Fu Xiaoying's whereabouts. I even said in front of him that I would protect him. No one helped you find him. Everyone is helping you find that disciple. The woman who was reprimanding him earlier suddenly comforted him. Don't worry. He's just a disciple. It's normal for accidents to happen. Even I can't guarantee that he'll come back alive. But this little brother of mine is really not ordinary. I really treat him as one of my own. That's his fortune. Since that's the case, why don't you treat this as a test for him? This is a real mission. If he can come back alive, I won't make things difficult for him anymore. What do you think? Really? Of course. The woman comforted him for a while more before leaving reluctantly. After a while, the woman returned to the barrier world deep in the cliff. Just as she arrived at the garden, the demonic old man appeared behind the black stone. Master, why are you unhappy? The old man was like a loyal servant as he respectfully welcomed the woman back. Little brother has lived for 1,000 years and grew up in a sect. He has never experienced the cruelty of the cultivation world. Plus, the clan members and experts from other clans are coveting grandfather's position as an elder. If little brother doesn't learn quickly, the position of an elder may fall into the hands of those evildoers in the future. Father died because of these dirty methods. Actually, with master's strength and talent, you only need to train hard for a while to become an elder. I don't like power. It will only drag down my Tao heart. I only want to seek strength. With strength, I can establish my own immortal world and become a powerful force. Master, you can think of a way to train the young master and let him grow faster. This is a way to solve the problem. Good. I have to plan. I just need to let him experience things and learn. With little brother's talent, he's not much worse than those geniuses. He just needs some time to train. After being reminded by the demonic old man. At this moment, the woman in white suddenly calmed down. Her eyebrows that were as cold as the moon seemed to be condensed with frost. Her deep eyes were constantly flowing with a cold luster. In the depths of the void, this was a large amount of broken material fragments, which had accumulated into a large void of ruins. In the depths, it was as if the big goblin in the middle of the underground cave had once again taken the living disciples of Star Palace for cultivation. At this moment, Su Fong was led by a big goblin through the blood mist and the falling pieces of flesh. At this moment, Su Fong's expression was much more normal when he saw this scene. Since he couldn't change anything, he could only turn a blind eye to it. Dai Yi was nowhere to be seen. When Su Fong was looking for her, he was led by the big goblin to another dark cave. Moreover, there was an even more powerful demonic array that allowed Su Fong to sense Dai Yi's aura. When he arrived at the array, it was indeed Dai Yi's cultivation space. She was sitting cross-legged above a large amount of immortal stones, some gems that were filled with demonic aura, and a large amount of blood that had condensed into a cauldron. When she saw Su Fong, she asked him to come to the side of the cauldron. The reason you entered the seal back then was to obtain the essence power of Star Palace. Yes, Su Fong answered honestly. This is it. Although I escaped from the seal, many experts of Star Palace planted the power of the seal in my body back then, shackling the spiritual pearl and some of my meridians. Now, I want you to activate the vital energy of Star Palace and use your ability to cooperate with me to break all the seals in my body. Dai Yi was like an ice sculpture. The shattered vital energy of Star Palace will naturally be considered as repayment. It will enter your body and help you cultivate. The power of the seal is the essence left behind by the peerless experts of Star Palace. How much can you benefit from it? I don't need any repayment. I will do my best to help you return to your peak. Whether you're telling the truth or not, I feel good hearing it. Now, activate the vital energy of Star Palace in your body and use the 9 heaven stars minor art, especially the use of the power of the world. Cooperate with me to break the remaining seals. Yes. After Dai Yi gave her instructions, she immediately started forming seals. Su Fong also used the 9 heaven stars minor art and activated all the vital energy in his body. At this moment, he was secretly pondering whether he should use his full strength. If he did, Wouldn't Dai discover his potential? After pondering for a long time, he decided to use most of his strength and reserve some to help Dai. Chi. Dai suddenly released a demonic aura. Within the demonic aura, there were some sealing lines formed by Star Palace's vital energy. Bang! Under Dai's instructions, Su Fong immediately injected his vital energy into the demonic aura. You are a 4-Daos virtual immortal, but your vital energy is as abundant as a 7 or 8-Daos virtual immortal. Moreover, your physical body is so powerful. When he injected his vital energy into the demonic aura, it began to approach the aura of the Star Palace seals. Dai glanced at Su Fong with a shocked expression. Moreover, the world energy within your vital energy has surpassed that of a virtual immortal, reaching the level of a spirit immortal. Even a spirit immortal isn't as shocking. This is the reason why you were able to enter the seal and control the world energy to form it. This junior ascended from the lower realms and was a realm master in a small world. Naturally, I have some world energy. No wonder. What's wrong? So you were once a realm master. Otherwise, how could a virtual immortal like you dare to travel through so much space? You clearly know how dangerous the illusory snowgrounds are, yet you still dare to enter. This is courage. This is courage. If an ordinary virtual immortal saw those ordinary big goblin seals, they would be scared out of their wits, let alone entering the illusory snowgrounds. As an ascender, if you weren't tempered, how could you have such courage? Thank you for your praise, Senior. Is this because Aotion cares about you and personally gave you 3 profound sword talismans? The reason has begun. The world energy within your vital energy is helping me to pour divine might into the seal. Now we can begin to break everything. Release your meridians and prepare to absorb it. Okay. As he waited, he became excited again. This wait lasted for half a year. Suddenly, pa! Before Su Fong could even react, Dai's demonic chi caused deafening explosions to erupt from her body. Each explosion was powerful enough to kill Su Fong. If it wasn't for the formation protecting him, he would have lost his life. The physical body of an expert was shocking. Even if he had the Starry Daylight Sword, he wouldn't have been able to harm Dai. After a series of explosions, a large amount of starlight and vital energy appeared to shatter and flow out of Dai's blood-colored body. This was the power of the seal left behind by an expert from the constellation of 9 heavens. He impatiently waited for Dai to continuously vomit blood. After a while, with Dai's permission, Su Fong released all of his meridians and his 7 apertures to absorb the aura of the shattered stars from the demonic formation. At this moment, Law's voice rang out in his mind. This is a good opportunity for you. Take the chance to absorb it. You will quickly break through the virtual immortal realm and step into the spirit immortal realm. Immortal cultivation is just that miraculous. Tut. After absorbing the vital energy of the shattered starlight, Su Fong's body began to tremble. This was the power surging and expanding in his body. Chapter 929. Under Su Fong's senses, the surging power was like a mudslide, forcibly entering his body and then rushing into his meridians. This kind of surging power constantly set off tremors in his body. Why was it like a mudslide? There was naturally a reason. Normally, normal energy, such as true chi, heaven and earth spiritual chi, world origin force, and so on, would enter the body as a kind of gas without substance. But now, the true chi gushing out of Dai's body in the big goblin was 100,000-year seal power left behind by a powerhouse from the constellation of 9 heavens. This was the power that had been accumulated in the body for 100,000 years through the cultivation of countless experts. It was even more abundant than true chi. Without 100,000-year cultivation, it was impossible for an immortal to have such pure true chi. However, this kind of power from a supreme powerhouse directly poured into Su Fong's meridians. One could imagine how shocking it would be for a cultivator like him who had cultivated for hundreds of years. Therefore, this time, The fragments of a seal were as terrifying as a mudslide in front of Su Fong. They were about to burst open his meridians. If it weren't for the fact that his body had reached the consummate level and his body was incomparably deep, he definitely wouldn't have been able to bear this power. Moreover, he also used the world fragment and pure yang energy to suppress, refine, and fuse this vast power together. Sizzle. Time continued to pass. Several days passed. Some explosions still came from Dai Yi's body. Although they were not as fierce as before, they were still very shocking and numbed the roots of his ears. From Su Fong's skin, black impurities gushed out. Grain by grain, layer by layer, more and more appeared and rubbed against the aura. These changes outside the body were nothing. Under Su Fong's senses, the scene inside the body was indescribable. A large number of meridians were intertwined, and an astonishing power like a mudslide surged through every meridian. The true qi covered the entire meridian, and this speed was like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Seeing this, Su Fong's heart trembled. He was afraid that this aura would swallow his body. The seal's true qi not only surged through his meridians, but also his flesh and blood. From the top of his head to the bottom of his body, from the bottom of his body to the bottom of his feet, it quickly formed a state of circulation. Unknowingly, a year passed like this. Qi. Su Fong, who was absorbing the seal's power, suddenly appeared tribulation energy in his aura. The tribulation aura was almost burning, and it was about to burst out. Su Fong glanced at Dai Yi. He didn't want to break through in front of others. If he did, then many of his secrets would be exposed to her. But if he didn't break through now, he wouldn't be able to absorb any more energy. Even if he could absorb other energy into his magic treasure, it wouldn't be as effective as releasing it directly from Dai Yi's body. Gritting his teeth, he immediately channeled the remaining energy into Xianhuang's six-path pagoda for the undying tortoise, Bai Ling, Green Feather King, and the other big goblin to absorb. He took a few steps back and immediately undid all the seals in his body. Rumble, it was as if a bolt of lightning had struck Su Fong. His body trembled, and blood spurted from his mouth. This was not an injury. It was just that the energy in his body was already in a state of expansion due to the constant pressure. If the seal was suddenly undone, the energy would go out of control in his body. Then it would attack his bones, meridians, dantian, divine aperture, and brain. Even Dharma treasures and purple Qi Dharma spirits would be attacked. I can't suppress my energy anymore and stop my breakthrough. This breakthrough is my best chance. I can't let it go. I have to break through to the Fort Dao virtual immortal realm now. In an instant, this vast energy made Su Fong look like a human-shaped doll. Countless energy attacked him, and he couldn't control his body. It was as if the energy was spurting out of his body and leaking out. After this fierce release, the energy in his body started to take the form of a breakthrough. The energy started to attack his head from the bottom of his feet. Why are there 16 special meridians filled with yang energy deep in his body? 50 feet away, inside the demonic Qi barrier, Dai Yi, who was in the process of breaking the seal in her body and seemed to be seriously injured, focused part of her attention on Su Fong, who was breaking through. Because he was breaking through, his body could no longer be sealed or hidden. As a result, the powerful Dai Yi was able to see his golden core and 16 yang meridians. She was very surprised. Such yang meridians are unique. I've seen many experts in my life, but none of them are like him. Even those human experts who cultivate yang energy don't have such yang meridians. And his golden core doesn't even have its own golden core. It's just a golden core embedded in his dantian. There's also devilish and demonic qi within it. This brat is a cultivator who cultivates all three. If I remember correctly, there are no golden core cultivators among the humans who are called void men. No wonder at first glance, I only felt that this brat was different. Now that I'm undergoing my tribulation, I can see through his body. He's actually a void man. No wonder he can hide from my senses. If I were a human, I might be able to see through him. But the only people in this world who can see through him are probably the masters of the immortal world. His young body is the best treasure for me, the big goblin. Once I possess him, I can abandon this big goblin body and become a human. Even if I refine a second clone, it'll still be incomparably powerful. It might even be stronger than my true body. What a treasure, Yang Qi thought. No wonder the brat was able to sneak into proud heaven's ceiling mark. Treasures like this can't be easily destroyed. I need to come up with a plan to use it. A portion of her young immortal had been attracted to Su Fong, who was breaking through. A few days later, Su Fong didn't have the time to upgrade his cultivation techniques, divine powers, or fuse them with his Dharma treasure. Instead, he went to the demonic Qi boundary and absorbed the shocking power of the seal's true Qi fragments. At this moment, his speed of absorbing the seal's true Qi was 3 times faster than before. This was because he had stepped into the virtual immortal fifth Tao realm. His body had become more profound, and he could naturally absorb more energy. Moreover, he didn't feel as uncomfortable as before. He could barely control this power and control it to attack his flesh, meridians, and even his 16 yang meridians. The big goblin in the Xianhuang six-path pagoda had also absorbed a large amount of the seal's power. They could even fuse with the power of the constellation of 9 heavens. Su Fong also swallowed an immortal essence pill and let the pill's power fuse with his body's power. He also continued to fuse the remaining power from the Six Paths Pagoda into his body. The Tree Demon's power was also one of the powers that made him stronger during this period of time. The wood elemental power of the dragon taming Wood's left arm had probably reached a new height after he stepped into the virtual immortal fifth Tao realm. Unfortunately, the Tree Demon's power was almost depleted after he stepped into the virtual immortal realm. If he broke through another realm, the Tree Demon's entire body would turn into dust. By then, the remaining resources in his body would be the 3 mystic sword talismans that Ao Yin Chanhen gave him. Soon, his fifth Tao realm body felt the weight. He didn't need a rest. He had it directly. Empowerment. This was similar to empowerment. However, it was slightly different from empowerment. The power was the same, and the same power would enter the body. It wasn't empowerment. Just like Su Fong, he could only absorb the power and had to fuse it himself. If it was empowerment, the cultivator's entire body would undergo a transformation. The cultivator didn't need to do anything. When the cultivator's power entered the body, it would also strengthen the golden core, divine apertures, essence spirit, and the seals in the body. In this way, empowerment was a way to become an expert. Of course, empowerment wasn't available to everyone. Only master and disciple or family members could receive it. Under such circumstances, Su Fong had to digest the power by himself and strengthen the golden core, dantian, divine apertures, and the seals in the body. On the contrary, Dai Yi's movements were more subdued. It seemed that with Su Fong's help, she had broken through most of the seals. This wait lasted for more than a year. After 2 years, Su Fong opened his eyes. A wave of tribulation aura broke out from his aura and formed a burning aura. He was about to break through again. When Dai Yi saw this, her expression returned to normal. Go. Do you think I'll condense the last bit of sealing power into a talisman? I'll leave it to you. Su Fong flashed and went 100 feet away. The moment he undid the seal, the tribulation aura turned into flames that enveloped him and burned him. The tribulation fire was also extraordinary. It carried the aura of pure yang, the illusory fire cloud, and a bit of demonic and demonic aura. A cultivator, a virtual immortal, could control so many extraordinary powers. Boom, boom, boom. Su Fong, who was in the tribulation fire, was instantly shattered and impacted. He almost bled from his 7 orifices. The familiar thing was a large amount of impurities. He endured the impact every day. This time, he was not in a hurry to absorb the power. It took 8 days for the impact to end. The power of advancement turned into flames and enveloped his body. Instantly, a baby-like skin color appeared. He swallowed the immortal pill and began to form seals. His body's defenses and various immortal seals were all upgraded to the virtual immortal six paths realm. There were obvious six Dao marks outside his golden core, origin, and divine apertures. Su Fong finally reached the high-level virtual immortal realm in a short period of time after stepping into the constellation of nine heavens, becoming a virtual immortal six paths realm expert. Of course, he was an expert. If he went to a great world, such as the Spirit Six Immortal World or the Jianwu Villa, he would still be an ant in everyone's eyes. Gradually, his divine apertures, golden core, origin, dantian, and physical defenses condensed immortal seals and barriers, reaching the six paths realm in one fell swoop. In the second level of a Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, the demon tree also turned into ashes and disappeared in the flames. A tree demon was absorbed by Su Fong, just like that. Half a year later, Dai Yi sent a talisman. It was too timely. He had just broken through to the Six Paths realm, and his body did not have much energy left. He swallowed the talisman. Vast energy surged into his body. There was no need to cultivate. Just fusing with it was pure immortal power. In order to speed up, he also slowly started from 3 Black Sword talismans. He absorbed energy from them. Black Sword talismans? He could not absorb it all at once. He had to keep it for emergencies. It took 4 years for him to stop cultivating. Su Fong stepped into the virtual immortal Six Paths realm from the Four Paths realm. Dai Yi also returned to normal, and her aura became even more illusory. At this moment, Su Fong sensed the aura and obediently came in front of Dai Yi. She glanced at him coldly. "Since I helped you, are you going to help me too? For senior's sake, I'm willing to climb a mountain of blades and jump into a pot of boiling oil." He patted his chest. "Climb a mountain of blades and jump into a pot of boiling oil. I don't like your glib tongue." This king is preparing to establish a monster faction in the human world. He will also recruit some humans to work for him. Next, he will attack Black Fiend Cliff. Recently, I heard that in the depths of Black Fiend Cliff, there is a tomb formed by the fall of a big goblin. I heard that the big goblins at Black Fiend Cliff worked together but were unable to open it. I reckon that there might be something left behind by the humans in the tomb. This is something that we monsters will find difficult to deal with. You might be weak, but this king can use you to break the seal. After being suppressed for 100,000 years, my monster body is infinitely strong, but my strength has not increased. I'm still not Aotion's match. All right, Su Fong agreed without hesitation. I will promise you that if I find any human treasures in the big goblin tomb, I will give them to you. Prepare to leave. Dai Yi suddenly curled up. As Su Fong floated, she disappeared from the cultivation space with a strand of monster chi. Chapter 9:30. Su Fong's field of vision was only opened after the demonic chi dispersed. He was no longer in the demonic chi boundary of the cave, and he was surrounded by a desolate and boundless void. Dai Yi was still dressed in white, and several experts were waiting nearby. Then, more than 50 cultivators flew over. They were all big goblin. All the big goblin, including Empress Yellow Moon, bowed to Dai Yi. "Congratulations on recovering your strength, your majesty." The constellation of 9 heavens sent many experts to suppress this king 100,000 years ago. But today, the seal was finally broken, and this king regained his former strength. The first place he took down was Black Fiend Cliff. Dai Yi shouted, and one of the big goblin transformed into a black eagle. It was 10,000 times more powerful than the Black Fiend King in Su Fong's pagoda. The black eagle was almost 300 meters long, and its strength was far greater than Bai Ling, the undying body, and the Green Feather King. It spread out in the void, and the experts landed on its back. Its wings flapped, and it tore through the void like a shooting star, escaping into the depths of the cave. Su Fong stood beside Dai Yi. The great demons around him were also like stone statues. They didn't move at all as they followed the eagle through even more voids. Luo. Just like that, the past passed. Suddenly, Su Fong felt that at this moment, he had a different feeling of truly getting used to and accepting the great world. A young immortal came to the Blood Jade. "Fate, I really believe in its existence. What's wrong? You're young, and you don't believe in anything but yourself. It's rare for you to believe in something. Luo's eyes flickered with curiosity. In the illusory snow grounds, I met the big goblin Dai twice. This time, Dai escaped from the snow grounds, and there was still a portion of the seal on her body. Then, I came to the snow grounds on a mission and was captured by her subordinate big goblin. I almost lost my life, but then I met Dai, and through my identity as a disciple of the constellation of 9 heavens, I helped her break the seal on her body. It is indeed fate. The unseen world will not let you meet someone for nothing, especially if you come into contact with someone or something so many times. Luo said, Dai was suppressed by the constellation of 9 heavens and later escaped from the snowy lands. However, there was a seal in her body. If she had not met you, it would have taken at least a few hundred years for her to truly regain her freedom. However, she had to meet you. Isn't this fate? She had also captured many disciples from the constellation of 9 heavens. She probably wanted to use the disciples of the Star Palace to help her regain her freedom. A doubt suddenly appeared in his heart. In that case, if the heavenly Tao wants me to walk into a dead end, could it be that I have to follow fate and seek death? Nothing in the world remains the same. Look at that stream. It passes through the mountains without a path, but in the end, doesn't it still flow into the ocean? I reckon that all living things in the world are like that stream. In the end, they will all walk towards a destination guided by fate. Actually, I once had the same thought as you. When I feel fate, I feel that it is extremely terrifying. Of course it's scary. No one wants to be arranged in such a way. Actually, breaking fate and the Tao of heaven is what it means to defy. Defy. One word is enough to explain what cultivation is. We cultivators have been living a life of savagery since ancient times. After generations of our ancestors defying the Tao of heaven, we have our current cultivation civilization. We have already walked the path of defying fate and the Tao of heaven. However, in the end, cultivation became a natural thing. Cultivators no longer think about why they want to cultivate and what it means to seek the truth. This is not something you can understand by chatting with me. If you want to truly change the path of fate, you have to dare to challenge the impossible. I did not do it in the past and did not have the courage to do so. I hope that if I can survive, I will definitely walk an extraordinary path. You should do the same. Luo, I will think of a way to find other blood jades for you to help you regain your freedom. Your body and Yuan spirit were only suppressed separately. You haven't died. As long as your body and Yuan spirit fuse together, you will regain your freedom. I appreciate your kindness. Forgive me for being frank. I'm not trying to hurt you. Even if you were 10,000 times stronger and became an expert like Aoyin Chanhen, you would not be able to save me. But I can help you find the other blood jades. That is doable. However, I don't know where the other blood jades are. I will only be able to sense the remaining blood jades if I get closer or find most of them. How close do you have to be to sense the other blood jades? An immortal world, but not a major world. Just like the immortal world and the spirit world, I will be able to sense the blood jades 2 immortal worlds away. All right, then it's a deal. Helping you regain your freedom is also part of my cultivation path. Even if it is impossible, I will still defy the heavens. The 2 of them were in the big goblin camp and in the cold, desolate void. Just like that, they chatted as if there was no one else around them. Time flew by. At first, it was slow, but gradually they saw a world of nothingness. They held their breaths and waited patiently. On the way, they encountered some terrifying nebulas and some turbulence. Why were nebulas so terrifying? Some nebulas were not ordinary. When they moved, if they accelerated, they would crush the matter within, just like the spatial turbulence in the Mirror Moon barren land. Fortunately, the big goblin was very strong and understood the void well. The big goblin had lived in the void for a longer time than humans. With their physical talents, they could survive in the void. About 2 years later, they were almost close to the Yuan Lu Great World. Gradually, they entered a large area of shattered matter in the void. Here, the Black Shadow's huge body could not fly freely, so it turned into a human. With Dai as the leader, the group silently flew into the void. When they reached the depths, a turbulence tore through the void, blocking the experts in all kinds of matter. There were even more shattered matter in the depths of the turbulence. It seemed that this turbulence was not simple. Su Fong took a closer look and inadvertently saw a piece of stone more than 100 feet large being sucked into the turbulence. In the end, it was torn into pieces, and the pieces were reduced to dust. This was the terror of the void outside. Fortunately, the big goblins were very familiar with the environment. Several big goblins immediately faced the turbulence and began to spit out gusts of demonic wind in the opposite direction, causing the turbulence to slow down. It really wasn't easy. The turbulence's area was too shocking. It took a long time for the turbulence to slow down. With a wave of Dai Yi's hand, several dozen big goblins passed through the turbulence. In that instant, everyone could sense that the entire turbulence was attacking Dai Yi's space with terrifying power. Fortunately, Dai Yi was too powerful. With just a few vibrations, she passed through the turbulence. As soon as they reached the depths, all the big goblin suddenly stopped breathing. On the other side, several big goblins' true bodies just happened to be flying through the air. These are all big goblins from Blackfiend Cliff. They're patrolling the outer perimeter, said Empress Yellow Moon. Once the big goblins flew to the other side, the group once more went deeper, passing through a large mountain of material. This was especially true as they went deeper. Most likely due to the movement of the void, all kinds of material fragments were piled up. Su Fong was no stranger to this scene. In the void outside, there were all kinds of things that had accumulated from ruins. It had practically formed a continent of ruins. As soon as they flew into these ruins, they felt a natural energy shackling them, causing them to slow down. Furthermore, the turbulence in the air would occasionally increase in speed. If they encountered the turbulence in the air, they would definitely die. Even the big goblin wasn't a match for the turbulence. The fragments and particles would also explode due to the turbulence. All kinds of natural threats were present everywhere. There were even some storms that struck the ruins, creating huge craters. Su Fong now knew how the canyons and sinkholes that he had encountered before were formed. Look, Blackfiend Cliff's king. Suddenly, the group's speed slowed down. After hearing the words of the big goblin, Su Fong looked ahead. In the middle of the floating dust, there was a natural chasm. The natural chasm abruptly formed an indescribable cliff. Blackfiend Cliff. The cliff wasn't surrounded by fog, but by some gray fog. This probably wasn't fog, but a large amount of dust floating around Blackfiend Cliff. With just a glance, Su Fong could see a large amount of demonic qi seeping out of Blackfiend Cliff. What a big goblin's nest. In both the minor and major worlds, this was probably the only place that Su Fong had truly seen that belonged to a big goblin. Blackfiend Cliff was right in front of them. Over 50 big goblins simultaneously looked at Dai Yi. King, a 5-color demonic qi formed around Dai Yi, condensing into a 5-colored throne. Go and challenge us. Just this kind of method? Su Fong couldn't believe it. Just like this, they were going to attack Blackfiend Cliff. If it was him, he would definitely think of a way to reduce his losses and capture the target as soon as possible. But from another perspective, with Dai Yi's cultivation and strength, there was no need for her to scheme. With her strength, she could directly crush her opponents. Hoo-hoo-hoo! A big goblin shouted a few words from the sky. Suddenly, a demonic wind, demonic clouds, and black smoke swept out from Blackfiend Cliff. Demons. This was the world of demons. Su Fong's horizons were truly broadened. Then, there was the sound of war drums. From the demonic clouds, demonic smoke, and demonic wind, hundreds of demons appeared. There were probably a few thousand of them. Most of them were in their true bodies, and only a portion of them were in human form. Some big goblins raised large banners. Some big goblins beat large drums. Some big goblins blew long horns. They stepped on the demonic clouds that filled the sky. It was like an army of big goblins that wanted to flatten everything and devour the rivers and mountains. Lady Yellow Moon said, "Is this some kind of opera?" Hee hee. The other party also started to shout. Who dares to shout? This is the Black Python King's territory. Where did this group of loose demons come from? Leave and don't die for nothing. Dai sat on the five-colored throne and suddenly looked at the surrounding big goblin. Stop wasting time. Little ones, kill, kill. Any treasure belongs to whoever has the ability to plunder it. There's no need to hand it over to this king. Ayo, 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 ayo. More than 50 humanoid big goblins rushed out in their human forms. However, they looked like big goblins and howled at the sky. They directly charged towards the 1,000 or so big goblins that were shouting at Blackfiend Cliff. It's good to have strength. This was a blatant disregard. Su Fong glanced over and saw that Dai had already lost her patience and wanted to seize Blackfiend Cliff as soon as possible. Although there was urgency in her eyes, there wasn't the slightest bit of anger. This was the boldness that an expert should have. When he looked ahead again, both parties were already fighting. Dozens of big goblins were surrounded and attacked. It seemed that they were no match for Blackfiend Cliff. However, these big goblins had yet to display their true abilities. Moreover, their attacks quickly carved out a path of blood. They were just a bunch of chickens and pottery dogs. Of course, they were unable to withstand a single blow because they had met a true opponent. Even if the Jinwu Villa came, they might not be able to suppress the big goblin so easily. Dai put away the five-colored throne and floated quietly like a young girl. It was impossible to tell that she was a peerless big goblin. Let's go. We will go deeper and meet that Black Python King. We will listen to Senior. Meet the Black Python King. To be able to establish Blackfiend Cliff, it must be a peerless big goblin. How could it be said so easily? In the blink of an eye, Su Fong found that he could not see anything. All he saw was a distorted black image. Chapter 9:31. The black scene seemed to be composed of different gray colors, but he could still vaguely make out a hole in Blackfiend Cliff. When he saw the next scene, he found himself floating in front of a huge underground palace formed by a barrier. Inadvertently, Su Fong and Dai were floating outside the underground palace. This was a bottomless abyss. The cold air was almost completely condensed from monstrous chi. The surrounding cliffs, plants, and vines were all condensed from monstrous chi. Clearly, this place had been occupied by the big goblin many years ago. It was extremely ancient. Looking at the underground palace protected by the barrier, there were dozens of big goblins hibernating there. He estimated that they were comparable to the big goblin under Dai's command. From the underground palace, he could sense a big goblin's aura. It was so powerful that it was on the verge of bursting out. Compared to Dai was like a deep well without any ripples. But the big goblin inside the underground palace seemed to be burning from within. Black Python, it should be a huge snake. Dai stared at the underground palace as if she had already seen everything clearly. This snake is not simple. For it to be able to cultivate in this cold abyss, it seems it has long since grown accustomed to the power of the void. However, you are unable to open the ancient tomb of the big goblin. Senior, what do you think? Su Fong didn't know what to do next. With his strength, how could he dare to take a step forward? Dai's body gradually emitted a spiritual light that resembled mist. You should hide here. After I deal with that Black Python King, I'll go with you to the tomb below. This python is qualified to be my right-hand man. Senior, can you capture a few powerful big goblins for Junior to raise? Junior also cultivates the power of the demon race. I can restrain a few big goblins. Can you suppress them? No problem. Just don't get too many. All right. But you almost made me feel like you're a demon catcher that my demon race hates the most. Please don't be a demon catcher. That's my demon race's natural enemy. Junior isn't a demon catcher. If I was a demon catcher, I wouldn't have been reduced to this state. Hide. After Dai finished speaking, her domineering aura started to surge. It was as if, at this moment, he had learned that Su Fong could suppress the big goblin, and even mistook him for a demon catcher. After Su Fong activated his divine ability, he rolled in the air and hid in a cave on the cliff. This brat is so mysterious. Dai's eyes were almost misty. After staring for a while, she suddenly used a movement art or a divine ability to enter the demon formation. Great perfection ability. Su Fong did not want to miss such a rare scene. Using his Earth Attribute ability, he hid behind a rock. Using his Great Circle ability, he was able to see through the demonic array. He immediately saw Dai Yi enter the underground palace under the protection of an enchantment. The next second, she floated in front of the underground palace, still without any aura. However, Su Fong saw that many big goblins were hibernating around the underground palace. Although there were not many of them, only 20 or so, their strength was about the same as the big goblin beside Dai Yi. The big goblins were clinging to the damp ruins and mist. If one did not pay attention, they really did look like special rocks. As for the underground palace, looking in from the main entrance, there were more than a dozen big goblins gathered. They were also discussing the battle outside. At first glance, Su Fong's gaze was attracted to a black-robed, middle-aged man sitting on the highest throne. From this black-robed big goblin, he immediately felt the same special demonic aura as the purple wind monster. This was a huge snake, 10,000 times stronger than the purple wind monster Su Fong suppressed. Naturally, this was the Black Python King, a big goblin that dominated a region. From the looks of it, the big goblin below did not care about the big goblin outside at all. They were also prepared to come out and fight alongside the Black Python King. Before Su Fong could get a clear look at the big goblin, he suddenly saw Dai Yi suddenly appear in front of the underground palace. She waved her hand and fiercely slapped at the air. Boom! The entire underground palace shook. From atop, the ground shook and collapsed. Even the surrounding abyss began to tremble. Roar! The collapse caused a large area to collapse. Dust flew everywhere. At this moment, Dai Yi suddenly jumped up and used her aura to smash the demonic array above into pieces. There were no more demonic arrays in the abyss. From within the dust, the angry and struggling voice of a greater demon could be heard. Rustle. Moments later, Dai Yi's right hand was still in the void suppression state. From the dust, a 300-meter-long snake covered in black scales rolled out. The huge snake struggled under the entanglement of the mist-like demonic aura. Its body would sometimes flip and sometimes jump up. Only when the mist-like demonic aura around its body was shattered did it straighten its body like a rooster and stare viciously at Dai Yi. Within the cave, Su Fong stared at the huge snake from some distance away. The Black Python King is so powerful. The scales on its body are actually as tough as a mid-grade Dao artifact. Wouldn't the snake's body be as tough as a mid-grade Dao artifact? Where did this expert come from to dare step into this king's territory? Tell me your name. This king does not kill nameless people. The Black Python King spat out poisonous gas, its tongue flashing like lightning in and out of its mouth. My king. The dust behind them almost filled half of the abyss. Great demons of different shapes and sizes were moving like small mountains, emerging from the dark dust wave. It was too frightening. They were the Black Python King's most loyal subordinates, and there were more and more of them. From the surrounding caves, Big Goblin led some smaller demons and howled. Invaded my territory, kill, kill, kill. The surrounding Big Goblin didn't even wait for the Black Python King's order to attack Dai Yi. Dai Yi pointed at the Black Python King. Black Python King, you are qualified to make me attack. This Black Fiend Cliff is not bad, and there are many Big Goblin as well. I want to establish a force, and this Black Fiend Cliff is mine. Ha! Arrogant! Without waiting for the Black Python King to speak, the surrounding Big Goblin all held their bellies and laughed. One person dared to challenge the entire Black Fiend Cliff? Dai Yi was still very calm, like a floating fairy. Black Python King, I will wait for you here. Other smaller demons, don't attack. I will kill every one of you that comes out. You are not enough for me to kill. Just you wait. This king hasn't attacked for 10,000 years. Today, I will capture her. Hee, it just so happens that I am lacking a mistress. Your transformation is really exquisite. You're a living beauty, haha. The Black Python King suddenly shook its body, causing the surrounding Big Goblin to almost retreat. Whoosh! Like a bolt of black lightning, It pounced at Dai and opened its mouth. Its teeth were even sharper than a Dao treasure, and its tongue was filled with terrifying snake venom. The aura of this strike alone was enough to cause the entire abyss to fall into a state of trembling destruction. This was especially true for Su Fong, who was behind Dai. Despite the considerable distance separating them, he felt as if the Black Python King would swallow him whole in the next second. What a terrifying big goblin. Still arrogant? The Black Python King's snake shadow was about to swallow Dai. The stronger you are, the more qualified you are to serve under me. If I want to establish a force, I need experts like you. Dai was about to be bitten to death and swallowed, but she still had no intention of attacking. She calmly replied, I will show you how big the gap is between us. How big? A world of difference. Dai suddenly raised her hand and pointed. Whoosh! The Black Python King, which was already in front of her, carried its astonishing snake body with its huge mouth. It was like a mountain was pushing the Black Python King to attack. But as soon as Dai pointed, the Black Python King suddenly froze and floated motionlessly in the air just 3 meters away from her. The Black Python King seemed to have been suppressed in midair by some array or magical ability. From Dai's jade finger, there was a misty spirit light. Then a layer of mist-like demonic aura appeared around the Black Python King. It turned out that the Black Python King had indeed been shackled in midair by a magical ability. In front of the tiny Dai, the Black Python King's huge eyeballs kept trembling and stuttering. Its eyeballs were about to shatter. I have never heard of such a powerful big goblin like you around here. There wasn't one before, but there is one now. I will give you another chance. Go. Dai gently waved her arm again. The Black Python King, who was frozen and shackled, suddenly flew back uncontrollably. After the Black Python King regained its freedom, it could no longer hear the shouts of the big goblin behind it. It could also see that all the big goblin subordinates were scared out of their wits. It had met a tough opponent today. The other party had shackled it with just a casual move. What kind of cultivation was this? Good. I don't believe that you are so powerful. Roar! The Black Python King's erect upper body formed into a hooked shape and absorbed the surrounding dark aura. Then, with a violent tremble, its body arched and spewed out a blood-colored demonic aura. There was also a blood-colored flying sword inside. It was a very high-quality, mid-grade Dao artifact. The demonic aura and flying sword combined. This blood-colored demonic aura turned the dark abyss blood red. It was like the wrath of the heavens and earth, and it was about to devour Dai. Su Fong had the urge to run for his life. Fortunately, he chose to believe in Dai. He couldn't help but ask secretly, Luo, how powerful is this attack in the greater world? Luo said, how should I describe it? The cave immortal is not invincible in the greater world, but it is still a very powerful attack. When you step into the cave immortal realm, you will know. Don't worry, this attack will not kill Dai. Su Fong's fingernails almost dug into the rock. Buzz! Suddenly, a beautiful pair of wings appeared around Dai. It wasn't real, but a kind of mystique or natural aura. Boom! In the next second, the flying sword wrapped in blood-colored demonic aura was blocked by a mist in front of her. Space itself was torn apart. Although this collision wasn't deafening, Su Fong's heart was still hanging in the air. This is a butterfly demon. Luo wasn't shocked at all. Dai sucked in a cold breath. Fortunately, Dai had blocked such a terrifying attack. Su Fong took a closer look. Indeed, there were wings around Dai, combined with the fact that she was indeed a butterfly. As it turned out, Dai was a monster transformed from a butterfly. At this moment, Dai's cold voice rang out. Is that enough? Su Fong focused once more. Dai's mist had blocked the Black Python King's attack head-on. It had lasted for a dozen breaths, but the Black Python King was still unable to break through it. I admit that I'm unlucky. He hadn't expected that such a savage existence like the Black Python King would nod its head without hesitation. Then, the blood-colored demonic aura immediately scattered. As the Black Python King's attack disappeared, the oppressive, baleful aura in the dark abyss also partially shattered and dissipated. The surroundings gradually returned to silence. In the next second, the Black Python King transformed back into human form and waved its hand. The big goblin also transformed back into human form and gathered around it. Chapter 9:32. Powerful. Su Fong gradually recovered from his shock, and his breathing returned to normal. This was the world of the big goblin. If Dai Yi hadn't been strong enough, she would have been devoured by the Black Python King. If Dai Yi had been more vicious, every big goblin here would have been turned into a corpse. Dai Yi rose into the air, and those mysterious wings disappeared. She looked at the big goblin that had gathered and said indifferently, "If any of you are unconvinced, you can come out and challenge me like the Black Python King. But I won't let you off like I let the Black Python King off." Her words were so direct that those big goblins with ulterior motives were probably scared out of their wits. The Black Python King led a large number of demons to kneel in the air. "Great King, send people out. Don't let those little demons die in vain." Dai Yi began to issue orders to the Black Python King. The big goblins began to move. A portion of them dispersed, leaving the rest to patrol the surroundings. Su Fong also appeared from the darkness and followed Dai Yi into the collapsed underground palace. The other big goblins waited outside. After waiting for a while, even more big goblins entered the abyss. There were about 2,000 demons, but only a few hundred of them could be considered powerful experts. After Dai Yi took control of everything, she turned her attention to the ruins of the underground palace. Coincidentally, there were still some seals below. She looked at the Black Python King and said, "You built your dojo here, so the tomb is below. You did this to make it easier for you to absorb the cold, demonic chi coming from the tomb." The Black Python King nodded honestly. Yes. This subordinate followed the previous great king and discovered this tomb. After that great king died, this subordinate cultivated here. This cold, demonic chi will affect the spiritual pearls in your body and shackle your cultivation. Unless you have an innate ability to fuse with this cold, demonic chi. Dai Yi sensed the barrier below and seemed to have seen the tomb. She then had the big goblin stand guard around it. With a swipe of her hand, a passage appeared in the barrier. The Black Python King and Su Fong stepped in first. Dai Yi was the last to enter. Lady Yellow Moon and the other big goblins waited outside. As soon as the passageway appeared, the surroundings were filled with a terrifying chill that could freeze Jinchi. Su Fong hurriedly absorbed the 9 frost chi from the primordial chaos sacred realm and fused it with some pure yang energy. He was not shackled by the frost chi. Even the Black Python King and Dai Yi were somewhat affected. This place felt like a deep abyss. Under Dai Yi's aura, the three of them finally landed on the ground after an hour. In front of them was an ancient sealed cave. Some demonic chi and cold chi seeped out from the seal at the entrance of the cave, forming a special cold demonic chi in this space. Dai Yi arrived at the entrance of the cave and activated her seal. A beam of immortal light collided with the barrier, and a special seal appeared above. It contained demonic chi, but there were also some seals that did not belong to demonic chi. Your subordinate is incompetent. Together with the previous king, we led many experts to attack the formation, but we were unable to succeed. The Black Python King seemed very helpless at the side. It couldn't interfere. After frowning for a while, Dai Yi immediately looked at Su Fong. "I was right to bring you here." Su Fong bowed. "If this junior can help, I will definitely die." Dai Yi looked at him coldly, then stared at the formation at the entrance of the cave. "I don't need you to die. I think this big goblin tomb is most likely an existence left behind by an ancient human expert. My king, where did you come from?" "The previous king, and I spent tens of thousands of years to find out." The Black Python King finally showed a look of submission. "Where I come from is not something a wandering demon like you can know. If possible in the future, I can take you there to broaden your horizons." With that, Dai activated the barrier again. At this time, Su Fong also activated his great perfection ability. While Dai was activating the barrier, it was the best time to sense the powerful seal. Sure enough, his great perfection ability allowed him to see some formation seals formed by human true qi within the seal. They intertwined with large amounts of demonic qi to form an ancient formation. It seemed that almost all of it was demonic qi, but deep inside, there were traces of seals left behind by human experts. It is indeed very difficult to break this formation. The seal was left behind by a human expert and can only be broken by a human cultivator. If demonic qi is forcefully poured in, it will be impossible to break the formation. Moreover, if the formation is forcefully broken, the entire tomb will be broken as well. Then, it will be buried in the depths of the ruins and become an eternal secret. Dai gradually had an idea. She looked at Su Fong. I will have the Black Python King temporarily hold back most of the demonic qi in the seal. I will help you find the seals left behind by human experts and break them one by one. This formation will naturally be broken. I will listen to Senior's arrangements. Since he was here to help, Su Fong could only listen to Dai. Moreover, he also felt that there should be treasures left behind by human experts in this tomb. If there was even one, it would be extraordinary. When Su Fong arrived at the entrance of the cave, he stepped on something and broke it. At first glance, it turned out to be a pile of rotten bones. From the looks of it, there were quite a few people who had discovered this tomb in the past. However, in order to open it, they had all lost their lives. After the Black Python King was ready, Dai sent out a stream of demonic qi. The two experts worked together to activate the formation. This formation was a powerful world that Su Fong could not enter. He gritted his teeth and activated the Young Immortal. He separated a Young Immortal from his primordial spirit and infused it with true qi. Dai said, "Don't worry. Even if something happens, it will just be a waste of a primordial spirit." Whoosh! Using the Sky Devil disintegration seal, a Young Immortal infused with true qi flew into the formation world through the channel Dai had released. At this moment, Su Fong seemed to have entered a different world through the Young Immortal. What kind of world? A world of demonic qi. The cold demonic qi that had settled down had solidified into a solid form, finally forming this formation. Moreover, there were layers upon layers of restrictions. To enter each layer required great strength. If it weren't for Dai, even the Black Python King would only be able to enter the outer layer. Everything Su Fong saw was formed from traces of demonic qi, which interweaved into restrictive spells that looked like a demonic qi canopy. This was a completely different world. Don't get distracted. The outer layer is easy to deal with. While I'm in my strongest state, let's start from the innermost layer. We'll start breaking the seals left behind by the human experts. Don't get distracted. Dai really was amazing. She was able to see all of Su Fong's actions. With a warning, Su Fong completely followed Dai's power. He broke through a barrier and entered the second layer. Although the formation was powerful, Dai's strength was even more shocking. Her demonic qi was not pure and evil. It contained quite a bit of spiritual qi. It was as if she wasn't a demon, but a spirit monster. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to call her a spirit beast. Furthermore, her power had a special ability that allowed her to control some of her demonic qi. This demonic qi was formed by her special power. It began to slash through the waves, breaking the seals one after another, and entered the third layer of the formation. The third layer should be the innermost layer of the formation. This place was quiet. There were seal marks everywhere, as well as talismans. They were floating. At the center, there should be a sealing formation core left behind by the human experts. Dai controlled her divine aura to protect Su Fong as they went deeper. Su Fong suddenly asked curiously, "Senior, you seem to have a deep understanding of this kind of formation. In the past, my family also had a similar formation. Sometimes, humans and demons weren't enemies. Some humans would even live in demon territory." Junior is unable to imagine. Then don't get distracted. Do you see the formation core? It should be a magic treasure. It should be a human's magic treasure. I'll give it to you. Dai suddenly released more divine aura, but her speed slowed down. After cutting off a large number of seal marks, a circular array suddenly appeared in front of him. Countless seal runes and marks weaved together to form a circular array. Su Fong immediately saw 18 flying swords floating in the center. Each of the 18 flying swords was wrapped in a considerable amount of sealing power, which ultimately intertwined to form this barrier. Once the 18 flying swords were lost, the entire formation would lose its source, and after a long time, it would dissipate on its own. Good treasure. Su Fong was very excited to see this. At this moment, Luo said from the depths, "Kid, those 18 flying swords should be a set of sword spies." Su Fong frowned. Sword spies are also flying swords. Sword spies are, of course, flying swords. They are a Dao artifact formed by a large number of flying swords. They can turn into one flying sword, or they can be separated into multiple flying swords. Sword spies are a sword formation. They are stored in a sword sheath or sword box. I've seen a large number of flying swords in a small world, but they were all fused and activated by cultivators. This is the first time I've seen a sword spies. This sword spy is a high-grade Dao artifact. It's the best treasure for you. Although a high-grade Dao artifact can't be compared to the immortal gate in the great world, it's still superior to many Dao artifacts. This sword spy should be a treasure at the beginner level of a high-grade Dao artifact. That's great. High-grade Dao artifacts. The Ghost Fong Chakram should be a high-grade Dao artifact. The Ghost Fong Chakram cannot compare to this sword spies. Not only is its power inferior, but its use is inferior as well. Luo explained to Su Fong in detail. At this moment, Su Fong finally arrived in front of the central formation core under Dai Yi's control. Dai Yi impatiently said, "I'll help you activate it. You just have to fuse with it. Fuse with your power and turn it into an attack. Break the seals around the sword spies and take them." Buzz buzz. Magic power was boundless. Su Fong's young immortal was almost burning. The sealed true qi and magic power swept out, turning into a vast power that was ready to burst out at any moment. Dai Yi's astonishing power was also added to Su Fong's body. Su Fong felt like a rubber ball that was about to explode. Then, he released his power to cover the formation core and fuse with the talismans. In this way, Su Fong was almost fused with the formation core. Yin-Yang Rakshasa's sword. At this point, Su Fong realized that all this power did not belong to him. He was just a carrier. The real power came from Dai Yi, but he still urged himself to create his second divine ability, Yin-Yang Rakshasa's sword. Immediately, a large amount of energy swords poured into his eyes. He saw the seal marks and talismans around the 18 flying swords. Then he attacked. What a powerful divine ability. Dai Yi was shocked by the attack. She did not expect Su Fong to have such a miraculous attack. In this way, they could destroy the formation core in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Dai Yi expected, the energy sword struck a large amount of seal energy at the same time. There was a huge explosion. Get up! Before Su Fong could control it, a huge power erupted from his body and wrapped around the 18 flying swords that were still in the midst of the explosion. Chapter 9:33. If this aura didn't come from Su Fong, it was impossible for him to possess such astonishing strength. It turned out that Dai Yi had used his young immortal and the magic power she had accumulated over countless years to control the 18 shattered flying swords through Su Fong. Sword spy, sword spy, sword spy. At some unknown time, Su Fong began to cry out from the depths of his heart. It wasn't an outsider, but rather Su Fong's own consciousness. He was unable to resist the strong desire to possess the sword spy. He watched as the 18 flying swords, under Dai Yi's control, suddenly contracted and condensed into a single flying sword. From the depths of the ceiling formation, an ancient sandalwood box that was about a foot long flew out. It was only the size of a palm, and the flying sword obediently drilled into the box like a child returning home. At first, it was overjoyed, but then it obediently laid down in the sword box. The sword spy. This was the magic treasure used to seal the tomb's formation core. The sword spy suddenly appeared in front of Su Fong. It was the sword spy that had been forcefully suppressed by his aura. Dai Yi said quietly with a look of admiration, "This is a good magic treasure." Back in the day, the experts of the Nine Heaven Star Palace also had such a heaven-defying magic treasure. When activated, it is truly terrifying and invincible. This is an upper-grade magic treasure. Even if I were to activate it, it would still be extraordinary. Unfortunately, the demon race has never been able to truly activate human magic treasures. For me, using a mid-grade or upper-grade magic treasure is already good enough. Powerful magic treasures can't exert much power. It really is a good magic treasure. Junior has cultivated for several hundred years, but I have never seen such a magic treasure. Hearing Dai Yi's admiration for the sword spy, Su Fong couldn't help but take a few more glances. Last time, it was you who helped me escape from the illusory snow domain, and it was you who helped me break the seal in the depths of my body. Now that you're helping me deal with this formation, will Ao Tian Changha give you 3 Xian sword talismans? Then I can also give you treasures. This sword spy is yours. Really? Do you think I'm that stingy? Then many thanks for Senior's help. Last time, someone took away my already fused magic treasure. I was looking for a good treasure. Without hesitation, Su Fong repeatedly bowed and received the sword spy with both hands. Dai Yi displayed the demeanor of an expert. All right, you go out first. This king still needs to leave behind some seals in this formation. Then we'll come back from the outside to break the formation. Su Fong was guided by a demonic energy and slowly left the 3rd layer of the formation. The ancient seals around him gradually gained a special demonic energy and divine aura from Dai Yi. He felt that the divine might was getting stronger and stronger. He had to leave this place quickly. After about half an incense stick's time, he flew out of the crack in the outer formation. The young immortal merged with his main body, and the sword spy immediately appeared in Su Fong's hands. Good treasure. Who would have thought that the Black Python King's cold, blood-red eyes would be attracted by the sword spy at first glance? In the end, Su Fong acted as if it was all mine, and swept the sword spy away from the enchantment. The Black Python King was very uncomfortable. It seemed that it was born with a bad impression of humans, and it was such a petty human. That formation and the tomb have nothing to do with me. With such a treasure, who can easily threaten me in the future? After arriving 100 meters away, Su Fong found cave. He was still preparing to merge with the sword spy. However, Dai Yi transmitted her voice to ask him to go over. She probably guessed that Su Fong could not wait to merge with the sword spy, so she did not say anything. Everything had nothing to do with him. Su Fong took out the sword spy in the cave and stroked it up and down as if he was caressing a lover. After a while, he opened the sword box and saw a silver flying sword lying quietly inside. Such a Tao artifact is really mysterious. I did not expect such a special treasure to exist in this world. Don't merge with it so easily. At this moment, Law suddenly poured a bucket of cold water on him. He was startled and asked for the reason. Controlling the sword spy means controlling many treasures. Even a powerful cultivator would find it difficult to use it. Moreover, you're only at the virtual immortal 6 paths realm. Do you think you can control the sword spy as a virtual immortal? That's true, but I can't just watch it. You have to think of a way to use the sword spy, especially when you're weak. There are ways to use it. Is that so? The sword spy's quality is like heaven to you. You can't even use 1/10,000th of it, so you have to think of a way. In my era, the sword spy was like this sealing formation. Almost all of them were used to set up formations. Only by using formations like this can you unleash the true power of the sword spy. Luo said slowly, but it's impossible for you to arrange such a powerful formation, so there's only one way left. It's also a coincidence. For you, this method is just right for you to do. It's not too difficult for you. Not too difficult. You can still do it? Su Fong's heartbeat quickened. If you want to control the sword spy with less strength, you can only do it with everyone. Don't you have puppets? Let each puppet control one flying sword, and you control the remaining flying swords. Use everyone's strength. This way, there will be more than 10 people controlling the sword spy together. Do you think the effect will be the same as if you're controlling alone? I have 15 puppets. No, without Wang Yuehai, I only have 14 puppets. This way, they can control 14 of the flying swords, and I'll control the remaining 4. This is the most practical way for many cultivators to cultivate the sword spy. However, if you have the strength to surpass the quality of the sword spy, you can truly unleash the power of the sword spy. I think you don't have to spend your energy on improving the Starry Daylight Sword and the Flaming Cloud Spirit Gourd. The Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda is your natal treasure and must be improved. In the future, you don't have to focus on improving your treasures. Instead, you should cultivate powerful treasures like this. Those 2 treasures can be left in the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda to slowly improve. All right, let's do that. Then should I capture a few more puppets and fuse them with the sword spy? That will make it easier for me to control them. That will be best. The fewer flying swords you fuse with, the more energy you have to control the 18 flying swords. However, you can simply fuse with the sword spy and control the sword formations within. I estimate that there are at least 18 sword formations inside, as well as 1 combined sword formation. But right now, you're in this tomb, so you probably won't have time to fuse them. Then let's wait until we get out. Law's suggestion was timely and insightful. At this moment, the earth suddenly trembled from the direction of the tomb. Even if he wanted to fuse with the sword spy, he wouldn't be able to do so. Falling rocks continued to collapse. He hurriedly flew out of the cave and arrived in front of the tomb. The ceiling formation was already exploding and shattering. Dai's clones were causing explosions both inside and outside the formation. From time to time, they would send out finger arts, causing the ceiling formation to collapse layer by layer. Amazing. When Su Fong arrived at the back, he had to dodge the falling rocks and be careful of the explosions. Fortunately, he had the Silver Moon Immortal Armor, which allowed him to resist all kinds of attacks without consuming too much energy. Puffed. Dai's main body was floating, as she couldn't help but vomit blood. The Black Python King beside her also seemed to have consumed a lot of demonic aura and didn't look as ferocious as before. The formation finally collapsed layer by layer, leaving behind ancient demonic aura. The entrance to the tomb appeared in front of the 3. Without the formation, they could enter at any time. A faint demonic aura began to spurt out from within. Without the formation, the demonic aura naturally began to dissipate. Dai and the Black Python King seized the opportunity to absorb the demonic aura into their bodies. This was a wasted effort to increase their strength. After about 2 hours, the demonic aura at the entrance dissipated. Su Fong followed the 2 big goblins curiously into the tomb. In the end, inside was a very ordinary cave, and at the end was a formation. Inside the array formation was the corpse of a great demon that was so badly mutilated that its appearance could not be seen clearly. Outside the formation, there was a 3-meter-long ancient yellow immortal pattern with a line of immortal words on it. I have buried a demonic general here for many years. I am willing to be a human in my next life and become a family. I will accompany you in your eternal rest with the heartless sword spy in my hand. Su Fong secretly exclaimed, "The heartless sword spy." So those 18 flying swords were the heartless sword spy. It's a pity that I don't know who left this tomb. Dai first rolled up, probably finding treasures at the back of the tomb. Then, she returned to her original spot, and the Black Python King continued to clean up the tomb. After half a day, the demonic formation suddenly began to shatter. It turned out that the Black Python King had broken the seal with one blow, grabbed the big goblin corpse, and sucked it into its mouth. This is too much. Disgusting. Su Fong didn't expect the Black Python King to dare to eat an ancient corpse. Such things were taboo. Demonic beasts were demonic beasts. Su Fong was once again acquainted with demonic beasts. Compared to a small world, The demonic beasts of a large world were unimaginable. After the Black Python King plundered everything in the tomb, it followed Dai and flew out of the Abyss tomb with Su Fong. Black Python King, lead your subordinates to set up the formation again. For the time being, we still have to cultivate in this Black Fiend Cliff. After a while, we will go and suppress the other big goblin forces in the void. King, they arrived at the underground palace ruins. With a thought from Dai, a formation appeared around them, and many materials piled up to form a huge rock cave. Su Fong didn't care about the Black Fiend Cliff. He found a secluded place alone and began to prepare to fuse with the Heartless Sword Spy. According to Law's instructions, he stripped off many young immortals, and then dripped 18 drops of blood into it, activating the illusory fire cloud to envelop the Heartless Sword Spy. Then, the sword box suddenly separated from the flying swords. The flying swords floated, and with a rustle, the 18 flying swords appeared, forming a sword-light aura that resembled a human figure. When Su Fong saw it, he was very surprised. He heard an ancient will from the flying swords. I am a demonic beast hunter from the heavenly master's blessed land. Once my cultivation reached a certain level, I held a sword in one hand and rode a cloud alone, wandering the boundless world. I didn't expect to come here and let a demonic beast friend who cultivated for many years die. In my grief, I left this heartless sword spy to accompany the tomb. If someone heard my will, it means that the tomb has been destroyed. This is within my expectations. Since the world can't be changed, I hope that the fated person who obtains the Heartless Sword Spy can bury my demonic beast friend properly. Thank you. Then, the will disappeared, and the sword light around the 18 flying swords also disappeared. I'm sorry to bury the corpse, but I can't do it. He felt a bit ashamed, but continued to control the blood and immortal fire to envelop the 18 flying swords. At this time, Law transmitted his will, a demonic beast hunter. Do you know of any demonic beast hunter factions? Su Fong asked curiously. I don't think there are any demonic beast hunter factions in the Yuan Lu Great World. I've never seen one before. But in the lower world, I met a demonic beast hunter, and he was the only one I saw in the small world. What happened? I didn't expect time to pass so quickly. The demonic beast hunter faction also disappeared in the turmoil of the world, never to return. Sad. Were there many demonic beast hunter factions in the past? There were also true cultivator factions. Not too many, but there were some. They were very mysterious, and their dojos also chose dangerous places. Do you have any impression of the Heavenly Master's blessed land? Naturally, I've heard of it. I've also met several demonic beast hunters. At that time, they were considered a big faction among the demonic beast hunter factions, and their names shook the immortal world. Although they didn't have many disciples, they often appeared in countless immortal worlds, helping many humans suppress the big goblin. After saying that, Law seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. Perhaps the Heavenly Master's blessed land reminded him of the past. Chapter 9:34. Swoosh. The 18 flying swords were drinking blood. The essence blood energy from Su Fong was only floating slightly at first, but now it was getting more and more ear-piercing. Sword light also seeped out from the flying swords layer by layer. One could clearly see sword patterns appear, fusing with blood-colored chi. This was Su Fong's power. It was seeping into the sword formation of each flying sword, the sword body, and the energy space deep within the sword formation. The vibrations of the flying swords became more and more shocking. Moreover, each flying sword no longer released a domineering sword aura, but sword light. It was very gentle and ancient. It was no longer sharp, and the sword light seemed to cast a soft and quiet sword chi world. In this sword light, Su Fong used his great perfection ability. With a glance, he saw all kinds of shocking sword formations, sword chi talismans, all kinds of immortal seal marks. It was too complicated, 10,000 times more complicated than the Ghost Fong Chakram. He felt that a high-grade Dao artifact should have a Dao spirit. The Ghost Fong Chakram also had a Dao spirit, but Su Fong had not used it, so he rarely communicated with it. However, He searched for a long time, but there was no Tao spirit in any of the flying swords. After chatting with Luo Yi, he learned that it was difficult for a sword spy to form a Tao spirit. Only a sword spy of higher quality and longer age could form a Tao spirit. It turned out that although the Heartless Sword Spy was powerful, it was not the most powerful Tao artifact in the Great World. It was even further away from Tao artifacts like the Xinjia Gate. The Heartless Sword Spy was just special. Because there were 18 flying swords, Su Fong had to expend a lot of his primordial spirit and energy to fuse them. Therefore, he was not in a hurry and spent time slowly fusing them. The young immortal was separated into countless pieces and scattered into different sword formation spaces, recording every immortal seal, every mark, and every talisman, and the combination of each layer of the sword formation. This was an arduous task, as well as cultivation. During this time, Black Fiend Cliff had returned to its former mystery and silence. Dai Yi was probably in the process of strengthening and recovering her strength. After being suppressed for 100,000 years, she would definitely take the opportunity to strengthen herself. As for Su Fong's countless young immortals, they seemed to be floating in the sword formation space. This feeling gave him a peace that he had never felt before. He could not feel breathing or weight, as if he was free from the shackles of his physical body. About 5 years later, large numbers of young immortals in the sword formation started to disappear. Su Fong was in the middle of the sword lights. Gradually, the sword lights weakened, revealing flying swords, which gradually quieted down. With a buzzing sound, the sword chi dissipated. The 18 flying swords floated around Su Fong. It seemed like Su Fong was the main force. It seems that the master of the Heartless Sword Spy has long since perished. If that's the case, I'll have to fuse with a demon catcher. It seems that there aren't many of them left in this world. After sighing, he immediately released the 14 slaves. Master, these 14 people were all spirit immortals. Although their cultivation levels were not high, in the great world, they could still barely surpass many immortals. In front of Su Fong, they appeared very respectful and courteous. It should be known that during this period of time, although they were shackled, Su Fong often gave them immortal pills and some resources. To be able to cultivate with such resources while being suppressed was already a form of freedom. These 18 flying swords are a sword spy that I just fused with. This Dharma treasure is too powerful. I'm only at the essence immortal 6 paths realm, so it's difficult for me to unleash its power. Looking at everyone, Su Fong said solemnly, "Therefore, from today onwards, each of you will cultivate a flying sword. In the future, you will activate the Heartless Sword Spy with me." Sword Spy, isn't this a legendary Dharma treasure? The 14 of them were attracted by the 18 flying swords floating around Su Fong. It was as if they did not think that the flying swords were extraordinary before. They only thought that there were too many flying swords. So they were sword spies. In the future, when I kill powerful enemies and suppress the big goblin, the resources and treasures I obtain will also be distributed to you. Therefore, how many resources you obtain and how fast your strength increases will depend on your own efforts. The resources I can give you are ultimately insufficient. However, if everyone works together, you can obtain any resources. This Heartless Sword Spy is a superior grade Tao artifact. It's not considered a top-grade Dharma treasure in the great world, but it's not something that spirit immortals and cave immortals can activate. It's already a miracle that a cave immortal can activate 1% of its power. If we join forces, we can probably activate 1% of its power. It won't be difficult for us to kill a cave immortal. However, without the Heartless Sword Spy, the 14 of you will not be a match for a cave immortal even if you join forces. Even with me, it won't be enough. Speaking of which, you should consider the pros and cons join me to become stronger and carve out a vast world. Or do you only think about your own thoughts? In front of so many experts, Su Fong did not hold back. Whatever he wanted to say, whatever he should say, he said it clearly. He naturally would not force others to do things that they were unwilling to do. Although they were slaves, Su Fong respected their opinions. However, if these people were not willing and were not loyal to him, they could forget about being important in the future. Every expert agreed in front of him. After that, Su Fong chose 14 flying swords and handed them to everyone. He condensed, in essence, soul imprint and imprinted the sword formations and seals that he had previously fused into their minds. This way, with the permission of his will, these people could cultivate the flying swords without being rejected by the flying swords. Everyone brought their flying swords back to the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda and began fusing their flying swords. Su Fong also fused the remaining 4 flying swords into his body. He constantly comprehended the sword formations. There were dozens of sword formations. Without 100 years of fusion, he would not be able to truly activate the Heartless Sword Spy. Now, he was satisfied as long as he mastered a sword formation. Another year passed before he stopped cultivating. His strength had increased by a lot, reaching the peak of the essence immortal Six Paths realm. 6 Tao marks could be seen in his divine orifices, golden core origin, Dantian, and many other places in his body. He came to the central demon formation and entered the inner cavern with the permission of the 2 big goblin. Inside, there was only an empty hall. However, the Black Python King suddenly materialized from a corner of the void. Lady Yellow Moon also appeared nearby. They were indeed big goblins. They hid their auras. If one did not use their perfected abilities, one would not be able to sense their existence. Even tens of thousands of Essence Immortals might not be a match for Lady Yellow Moon and the Black Python King. What a pity. I still did not get a big goblin. Forget it. Even one of these big goblins is already very powerful. What a pity. After a while, Dai Yi appeared on the throne and looked down at Su Fong. You're going back. Su Fong bowed and said, I have been out for more than 10 years. It is time for me to return. Senior, do you have a message for Elder Outyin? Not this time. If not this time, will there be a next time? Is this king talisman? Keep it with you. If you're close to me in the future, this king will sense you. Go back. Dai Yi shot out a talisman. I will take my leave. Senior, you do not have to send me off. Su Fong quickly put away the talisman. After saying goodbye to Dai Yi, he ran away faster than a rabbit. The moment he left Black Fiend Cliff, he could see many big goblins watching his every move from the depths of the void. Dai Yi had already established her own faction. If she continued to expand at this speed, her faction would be much stronger than it was now. Whoosh! He summoned one of the flying swords of the emotionless sword spy and stepped on it. The speed of the high-grade Tao artifact was too fast. He flew through the void. Even if he was as fast as lightning, it was impossible for him to return to the constellation of 9 heavens in a short time. Now that his speed was twice as fast as before, it only took him 3 years that should have taken him 6 years. Constellation of 9 heavens ruins dojo. Su Fong flew over on his flying sword. He shouted in his heart that he had returned. He stepped into the desolate mountain ridge and ruins and quickly arrived in front of the dojo's barrier. Because he had a token, the patrolling disciples hidden in the depths of the dojo did not reveal themselves. They returned to the barrier as usual. He had been flying through the desolate void. Now that he suddenly saw a world full of forests and a land full of vitality, his heart felt warm. Huangfu Dojo, main peak. Su Fong arrived at the plaza and strode to the main hall. When the disciples saw Su Fong, they did not think much of it at first, but they were very surprised. They even used the origin mirror to check Su Fong's identity. During this time, Su Fong heard some people secretly talking. It turned out that during the last snow mission, the big goblin had attacked and killed many disciples. Huangfu Dojo thought that he had died. Huangfu Dojo. Suddenly, while waiting, he saw several important people leave the main hall. One of them gave him a deep glance. Huangfu Dojo. But this person only glanced at him and naturally flew away. Su Fong laughed. I've killed so many of your people. Do you really want to kill me? When I'm strong enough to use the emotionless sword spy, I'll deal with you. Huangfu Shaoing. A familiar voice came from inside. He turned around and saw that it was Huangfu Hao. But he was not alone. Beside him, there was a young man who had the same noble aura as Baby Snoring. After he said it, he found out that this person was Huangfu Yunhai's son, Huangfu Yunxian. Huangfu Yunxian was also a young master in Huangfu Dojo. He was a big shot, but he had cultivated for 10,000 years. He was not as dandy as baby Huangfu, and he was much stronger than baby Huangfu. However, in his bones, he was still extremely cold and arrogant, looking down on everyone. Huangfu Yunxian stood with his hands behind his back like a master looking at a servant. He said coldly, "My father knows that you are fine, so he asked me to pass on a few words to you. In the future, you will obediently follow Huangfu Bao. Don't go out at will." He also told the Internal Affairs Department that he will not give you a mission alone in the future. Yes, this was to control his movements. It seemed like this was really for his sake, but in reality, it was to put him under house arrest. This way, he would not be in danger if he did not leave the constellation of 9 heavens. If anyone makes things difficult for you in the sect in the future, inform me immediately, Huangfu Yunxian said in a commanding tone, then brought Huangfu Hao into the main hall. At this moment, a disciple came out and handed him a storage ring. It was the reward he deserved for completing this mission. As soon as he turned around, he saw Huangfu Bao rushing over with a group of people. They were really well informed. "I missed you so much. You didn't lose an arm or a leg." Baby Snoring led a group of followers to welcome Su Fong. On the way, he asked Su Fong about his experiences in the past 10 years. Su Fong naturally said that he was lost in the void, and it was not easy for him to return. After that, Baby Snoring complained that he had lost more than he won in the past few years. Now, people no longer called him the ever-victorious general, but the ever-loser general. Of course, Su Fong just laughed it off. However, when he heard another piece of news, he could not help but be moved. Baby Snoring mentioned that he wanted to go out with him to gain experience. Moreover, it was his mother who personally ordered him to go out and gain experience. The reason why she told Su Fong was very clear. Baby Snoring also wanted to bring him out to gain experience. Fortunately, it was not too urgent. In front of Baby Snoring, Su Fong truthfully repeated Huangfu Yunxian's words. However, Baby Snoring did not care about it all. He did not care about Huangfu Yunxian at all. Of course, he was the grandson of an elder. Huangfu Yunxian was only a disciple of the upper echelon. After returning to the side peak, Su Fong prepared to accompany Baby Snoring to Drifting Cloud Lake. This time, he wanted to make a lot of money.